Hello, Uncle Mel. Antini, we are back. She chuckled happily as she usually did, and a warm smile appeared on two of their faces. Welcome back, young Lady Anna. Lady Nissa answered in a cheerful tone, and the night caption on the other side just winked at her. And my dear little sister winked back. Goo. She looked adorable while blinking like that. And looking at her wink, the other servants can't help but chuckle while covering their mouths like that. She was just adorable, and from the looks of things, she actually was the ruler of this place, But, in the middle of these cheerful laughs, Grandpa walked forward and looked at me. There was an excited smile on his face as he nodded at me, and I knew this was the intro time. I walked forward, but Rain wasn't letting go of these joint hands now, with that same smirk on her face that hadn't given up just yet. Now, really? I asked with a calm and helpless smile, and she just smiled or smirked. The same with her eyes excited about something. Everyone is watching, she said, and, this little witch. Every single one of the servants, even the ones in the shadows of them, had a sudden surprise-filled blank expression as they looked at us. Every one of them was an adult, and more than that, they were experienced people. And it didn't require a genius to understand the relationship between the young lady of the House of Atraxia, who was also a bloodthirsty witch secretly, and a young hero who every one of them knew about. The night caption almost choked when he saw we were talking through eyes, one of the most intimate forms of conversation. And as he knew Rain on a personal level, I could very well understand that reaction. Well, Grandpa called me forward. We had to finish this play soon. Suit yourself then. Saying just that much, I walked forward, dragging her with me. And this time, she just followed with a smile on her pretty face. You bastard. Shut up. Our voices were low and only the two in the front heard it, but after I said that, she actually fell silent. Standing before all these people in servant uniform, the essential part of this family, I looked every one of them in the eye who had a suddenly serious expression. They all were looking me back in the eye, unlike how the typical servants should look at their master, and Grandpa just laughed at their reaction. But then, even before he could open his mouth to explain to his dear people, Carla spoke up from behind. He beat me up with just physical strength, not even magic. And not just that. Control, experience, he's the best, and because of him, I experienced the zone for the first time. He pushed me there, and then just finished the fight in minutes, with him taking no damage at all. And as soon as she finished, Alf spoke up with the same admiration-filled voice. His magic is gorgeous. Even Master Arena can't help but openly admire his spells. They are super powerful, unlike anything I had seen. And they are his spells. Something even I would need weeks, maybe months, to understand and learn. And after I read his personal notes of basic magic theory, I can say without a doubt his understanding of magic far surpasses even the Academy professor's books. Just amazing. Every one of their eyes widened in surprise, the two in the front being the most surprised ones. But their surprise was just going to grow even more. As everyone knows, he is the one who invented the ice cream as well as most of the things served at Ian's new food and after eating the 2 new sweets he made yesterday. That lavish yet simple flavor. I know he has definitely surpassed me in terms of cooking. This was my grandmother naturally, and the chefs and kitchen maids in the white uniforms were shocked beyond belief at what they were hearing. And just hearing this fact was enough for all of them to acknowledge me, but the major blow was still left. Ho ho ho. You all know already just how amazing he is. So why all this? And, just so you know, these two aren't the only ones who fought him. We all know Master Merlin and his weird kink to fight strong young ones. He came there too and especially took Ian's test for the Academy admission. And after seeing him use his magic, as well as his battle senses, he couldn't help but admire him. To tell you something unbelievable, Master Merlin used physical punch in that fight, and not only did this boy block those attacks, but he also counter-attacked in the split second he was airborne with a special attack that blocked his mana for that moment. And then, he had no choice but to use the last spell, accepting he lose in that fight. An amazing battle that we couldn't help but just watch with wide-open eyes. That BS, ahem. Master Merlin was surprised, unlike anyone I know, And this boy, Axion Heliox Cromet, is so perfect. I don't think you could find someone better than him to serve under. And you mannerless bunch. Show some respect to someone who's visiting their home for the first time in almost 12 years of their life. And after that last line, they suddenly remembered something and bowed their heads to me all at once. Welcome back, Master Ian. They all shouted at once, and when I said they, I was counting the ones in the shadow who were shocked by Grandpa Jean's sudden appearance and low-voiced words. Well, he might have said something like, he even saw through my stealth. And it was true, though. I can see through his passive stealth. But that wasn't the point right now. They had acknowledged me, a stranger who they were meeting for the first time with their master. Not the young master. A master likes my dad and uncles. And they all standing behind me can't help their warm smiles. I was finally here, after the long journey of almost 6 years. I was here with this big family of mine, but there was someone else grandfather had to introduce. As you all know, Ian was separated and was transported to an unknown place. He survived in that dangerous place and met the master that taught him most things. Though that master has left the world, their child is with us here. Ian is her big brother, so we all are her family as well. She's special, more than anyone I have seen in this world, and I believe you all will treat her as one of us. He said while warmly looking at Zoe, who was holding Anna in her arms. And my dear sister blushed with surprise at those words. It was naturally surprising for her to be introduced to all these people like that. And in her eyes, all of them were special people with special colors, and the 2 captains in the front were even special among them. The mage captain in her eyes is an evergreen plant in the middle of a small grass garden, and the knight caption is a strong shield like metallic. Heart, strong and beautiful, like an unmoving fortress. And the others behind them were also colorful. All had something special to them, and he called her part of this family in front of them. The young girl can't help her blush. And every one of them looked at her with thankful and affectionate gazes and bowed the same way as they did to me. They were happy and thankful. Not only to her but to her mom as well. And the blush on their faces made them even more lively. She was similar to Anna, from what they could tell, and this made them happier. Now there was a really young miss that would actually act like the young girl she was in this house. And I could tell they were happy just from the fact that they just looked over the fact that Grandpa called her the most special person he had seen. But the 2 captions clearly heard that, so they were more than just happy. They first couldn't believe just how amazing this girl was, as well as just what power she would have for her to make my grandpa word it like that. But even they can't see anything special in her, so they just let that fact go for now. They were happy, and Anna can't help but chuckle at that reaction of hers. Big sister Zoe is amazing, right? We all can't help but nod at those words. Not just us, the family members, but also every one of them. She was amazing and normal. At least she was normal in their eyes, so she was already as special to them as Anna. And if this little angelic sister of mine is the ruler of this house, then her best friend, my other dear little sister, would be her subordinate ruler, right? Rulers. Damn. They already earning nicknames. What about me then? What will I get as my first ever nickname? I was looking forward to seeing what that special name would be, and more than that, I was looking forward to seeing just how amazing this house of mine and all the knights under our house would be. How's the new home, Seals? She was excited to see all this as well, and I could feel her excitement as she flew above my head while in an invisible state. Seals, one of the most cheerful beings, was happy and excited as well as a bit sad at this moment when I called this place my new home. The tower was our first home, and that fact will never change. But this was the new home we will be living in for a long time. And although I had already obtained the land for the first ever home I will build myself, that thing was still some time away. So, she was happy to see this beautiful new place, excited to see so many new people and exciting glowing flowers in the garden, as well as research what the humans and other creatures were like. She was a curious being, and I knew she would just send her clones to every place in this house and capital and just gather new data for herself. Well, that might turn out to be something naturally good as well. The butterflies would go to different places with a normal look, observe all the things, and even gather data that I can ask seals anytime I wanted. Just like my previous world's data gathering and spying stuff, this would be even easier with an intelligent being like my lovely partner. That was her own time pass, but, well, I wanted to explore this house, see the underground floor, which seemed even more exciting than Rain's home, and see the knights training under him. Grandfather was a person who liked those with talent and a goal, and he only chose these special people as his knight brigade members. Our family as well as Rain's and maybe two others who I wasn't fond of much, and the royal family were the only ones who chose every single worker themselves. Most of the houses and families picked up strong and high-potential individuals, totally disregarding their behavior, attitudes, and morals. They didn't even consider the fact they could ever disobey or backstab them because all of them took the Oath of Mana and the Oath of Aura before joining them, and the pay was high in noble houses. They naturally joined the family's knight units or as personal bodyguards. This house was different from most of the families, and from what I can see with my third eyes and Seals' clones roaming the house, every knight was a unique individual. Some, though arrogant, were nice people who didn't look down on other workers and just minded their own businesses. And most of them were cheerful ones who I would call true knights. The training grounds were also filled with trainees who weren't just yet part of the knight units, and there were many who were our age training there. And another thing that I loved about all this, not everyone used just a sword. Or, more like, the sword was just half the majority of weapons people practiced with. They used a variety of weapons. From spears, knives, scythes, and bows, some even used their bare fiestas and martial arts. Some even practiced with shields, axes, and war hammers. This was a truly refreshing view for me, and as I watched them practice, I can't help but smile happily. This place, just this much made it amazing. So there was no need to even talk about all the young mages learning in the mage building on the northeast of the estate. That place filled with research labs and stuff was amazing in itself. And then the undergrounds which connected our home with the one on the other side of the main road, which was clearly Alf's home. Well, anyway, it's just a big training arena, some special magic labs, and some cages and prisons from what I can scan. This was only one floor, not the two undergrounds like Rain's house. But anyway, this was an amazing place, and the greetings were mostly done. Okay everyone, I will be off to test the sword. And just saying that much, Carla ran away inside the house. I should go too. I will be back for lunch, big brother. And Alf wasn't in any hurry, as the diary was in his hands. He just started reading it as soon as he turned away, and most of the stuff like meeting and saying the story was done, so this reaction of theirs was quite understandable. They were still far from being able to defeat me, so they would have to work hard to train by themselves. And while the remaining ones had nothing much to do, Anna had the greatest and maybe the toughest task to do right now. And that was to introduce us to everyone and show us this enormous place. Or places, as there were 4 buildings in this estate. And Alf's house with that big garden was another thing itself, so I won't be visiting there today. Though, I wanted to see the young knights practice. Maybe I would find someone special to use from that bunch. They looked good, but to use my eyes and see their status windows, I had to at least know something about them, and that would only be possible after going there. But for now, Anna was excited. Let's go, big brother, sister Zoe. I know you will like our home. Yes. Anna was cheerful, and the way Zoe answered was amusing, too. The 2 ladies were happy while this other old but childish lady had, at last, let go of my hand and was talking with the knight captain. Hello, Sir Melior. Hope you have been well, she said with a genuine smile on her face, and the knight captain nodded with a similar radiant smile. Of course, Lady Rainelle. Though 2 months, 3 weeks, 4 days, 5 hours, and 6 minutes is nothing, it is definitely nice to see you again. Damn, that's specific. He was happy, surprised, as well as annoyed. But then he looked at me with a thankful expression and then back at her, and just nodded while continuing his smile. I hope the Duchess is all right, he said in a calm tone, but his eyes were asking her if she was actually all right or not. Maybe he and Lady Nissa were the only ones other than Grandpa who actually knew about the Duchess's health, but they had nothing to worry about now. She's perfectly fine, even better, actually, and all that thanks to your young master. Even Rain had a thankful, warm voice as she said that, and I couldn't help my helpless smile on that note. I did what I could, and it was all right in the end. We met and got to get this close, all because of the way we met and how things went from that point. He was surprised, and then, maybe, he joined all the pieces together and a new light flashed in his eyes. A light full of even more respect than before, and more than that, he was thankful. I didn't know what the relationship between the two was, but he genuinely cared about her grandma, and I could see it in those relieved eyes. Well, have a great day, Sir Melayer. I have to be with my friend for now. Maybe we can have a spar someday if you want. I will be staying here for quite a while now, so we will be seeing each other often. His genuine smile twitched at those words, and that was enough to tell there was definitely some bad blood between these two. Let's go, Sister L. Anna shouted with an excited face, and Rain started walking toward us after a small bow. The Ironheart sighed with some mix of emotions as he watched her back, and I just shook my head at this friend of mine. If she had bad blood with a kind-hearted figure like him, then I didn't doubt she would have actual animosity with many others. You are a bad person, you know. I spoke out loud, and she blinked at these out-of-the-blue words. No, Sister L is a good person. She is sweet too. Anna protested those words, and Zoe, even while knowing what I meant, followed along. Yes, Big Sister L is a cool person. Zoe was smiling cheerfully, and even I can't deny that this friend of mine was a cool person. But she understood what I was trying to say and nodded truthfully. Yes, I am a bad person, and you have to deal with it, my dear Ian. She definitely was a bad person, and I had no doubt she will cause many problems in the future, and I will have to clean up the mess after her. And it would be annoying, so I will have to teach her some things, many things actually, before we get to the academy. I will make sure you become a good person then. And this made her break out in laughter. Good. Well, the little Anna didn't understand what we were talking about despite knowing how we were feeling, but she knew we were happy, so she just shook her head. Okay then, let's go. The innocent little angel cheerfully shouted, and we followed along with excited smiles. Everyone else was all right, and they had some things to take care of, so we all had already parted ways after deciding to meet back at lunchtime. Anna was our home tour guide today, and every servant in the house had already received the news of our arrival. Everyone was excited, and so were Zoe and me. Starting from the giant garden and all the rare shiny, glowy flowers. We saw all the places in this garden, and this little angel of mine even told me a secret about this fountain by the bench, and it was really something fascinating. Maybe, if we are lucky, Rain and I will also see the things she talked about someday. Then we moved to the door, and even the door of this house was something really amazing. It only opened for people registered with the house's defense mechanism, and it was quite complex. Made with not only mana circuits and spirit mana circuits but also aura links, and the entire system was genuinely complex for a home. And I knew. This was the creation of my dear first uncle. Though he didn't put the system in the whole place himself, aside from the creator and those who entirely understood the complete system, no one, not even the one who carried out this, would know just how this whole thing worked. From what I can see with my smiley face scan, this started from the center of the underground where the control room was, then spread throughout the underground to the house on the other side, and then this entire home. It was similar to the system back at the old home at the border town, but this was far more advanced than that one. And even for me, it was somewhat difficult to understand. Well, breaking this thing would require someone to infiltrate the control room and shut the whole thing down. And that was the only way aside from bombarding the barrier with Tier 9 magic spells. Well, it was a nigh impossible thing, so thinking too much about it was too much. We entered the house, and the first thing after the giant gates that opened on their own after Anna's touch was an open banquet hall. A giant room even bigger than the one at Rain's home, and it looked amazing. And the interior and decorations, although not lavish, weren't modest either. Unlike the outside, the inside of the house was beautifully decorated with eye-catching things. At least this hall was. Then, on the other hand, were two stairs that ended at one balcony that most definitely was a stage for musicians to play instruments and for announcements. Well, this was the ground floor, and then we moved up to the first floor, which had many guest rooms as well as Mom's working office. And Mom was doing her work, so we didn't disturb her for now. I knew her capabilities, and she was strong enough that I had yet to see her status window. and she was strong mentally, so it would be even more difficult than others. All the guest rooms were good-looking and definitely comfortable for people of any standing. Then the second floor, which only had my uncle and auntie's bedroom, his research lab, and the room with the device my dad and he made after I was gone away. This device, this structure of a complex mechanism that covered half of the floor and had pieces of equipment worth thousands of platinum and mana crystals worth. Even more thousands of platinum planted on the walls. Anna only came to know this place accidentally, and she actually didn't know what these things did, and we didn't have any need to tell her. She knew they avoided telling her, and after I first contacted them, they had lessened the frequency of visiting this room. And Anna mostly stayed on the ground floor, maybe sometimes on the first floor and rarely on the second or their floors, so she was almost clueless about most stuff. Her room, the most special room, was on the ground floor, and it was a special pink place of her own. We saw that when we were on the ground floor, and that place filled with dolls and stuffed toys and books. That was something that reminded me of those young princess rooms. Though that room was comparatively smaller, the room was so secure, and I mean absurdly fortified with magic, artifacts, and barriers, that I can't help but sigh at this overprotectiveness. Well, I can't say anything myself after giving her a teddy bear, which though wasn't an artifact and was close to the magic-engineered tech of absurd powers comparable to a level 11 or level 12 artifact. It was a literal magic AI created with the knowledge of ancient times, something of lost knowledge. And this teddy bear, something so valuable that can freely change into anything she wanted without using any energy of her own. Well, something powerful that a child shouldn't have, but, well, it was something she loved, and I even made this for her, so it was hers. The artificial power technology used in its creation was something Grandma and I worked together with, and even though it was lost knowledge and she knew it, making things like these was pretty fun. And I would make another one for Mom. Again, that was like an actual cat. And although I won't be able to give it the feature to change the form like this one, that cat can function practically forever. The core energy accumulation was also complicated to explain, but in short, it worked like a mana core as well as a solar battery. Well, the body was almost a high-grade nanotech, so, well, that was it. The third floor was Grandpa and Grandma's room, a meeting hall, a magic lab that Dad used, and a library. They were nice places, and I was looking forward to spending my time there, mostly in the library, as it was quite a nice place. I hadn't read many books at the present time, and I just loved spending time in the library, so this was the most fun place in this house for me. The terrace was a normal place, and Anna had no permission to go there, so I would have to go there alone when I have time. So we moved outside to the place I was looking forward to seeing. The young knights of the House Heliox. Can there be something really like a hidden gem? It would be useful for sure. I had some great plans for the future anyway. Zoe and Anna loved this house exploration, and now, as we walked outside, Rain and I got excited about the things we would see too. People actually. They weren't things. Well, right. I can't believe it, and I didn't actually think they would have it, but I really found one. The hidden, unpolished, unknown gem. We were standing on the sidelines of Knight training grounds right now, a place where all the knights trained with all their hearts. There was a smile on their faces as well as anger and hate for their squad captains that forced them into the training even against their will. But even with the looks of disdain, they didn't slack off. They were diligent, and they knew they had to do this anyway, so they just followed their higher-ups during group training. Aside from that, there were many spars going on between members of knight divisions as well as young knights. This place was a big open area divided into different parts, and the earthly soil without any grass on it was perfect to train bodies of new members. The ground was solid, hard enough that they would definitely get wounds and bruises after falling during the harsh training and spars. And even if it was nothing for the ones like me, Carla, and Rain, it definitely was difficult for normal people who didn't have this monstrous talent. I can defeat most of the people here, those who weren't squad captains at least. Captains were all rank 5 at maximum, and there were 6 such captains. Though the knights in each group varied from the first squad, having as low as 20 other cadets, to squad 6, having as high as 100. These knights were trained as harshly as possible while focusing on bringing out their natural potential. The captains followed Grandpa's methods of training, and I can say for sure they all were doing quite fine. But that was just the adult ones. On the other side of this ground, there was a separate squad of young ones under the age of 18 training with the vice-captain, who was under Sir Melon. His name was Sir Victor, someone who was Alf in personality and was a confident and cheerful person, as well as sincere in his work. Though he understood they were all children, he was stern with the methods of the one he served, and he instructed every one of those children aging from 10 to 18. He was a good teacher for them, a clearly capable individual. His appearance was normal though, just the normal brown hair and black eyes, but he was special in all our eyes. My eyes called him a pure person, a bit timid but one who knew how to follow orders. His skills and stats were also fitting for a rank 5 knight, and his aura was yellow and had a denser appearance, almost like yellow rocks. It was fascinating to see this earth type of aura, and it suited him quite well. Anna also liked him, calling him good Uncle Victor. Even Rain's eyes approved him of being a good person. And as for Zoe, he was a blood-covered, good-looking spear that was standing victorious on a yellowish rocky hill. This was some of the rare times Zoe saw this clear image, and such diversity in a single being too. And she could approve of him just from that much. So this person was already on my to-acquire list, but I wasn't talking about him. He was a gem, and yes, just some more polishing would make him as great as Sir Melayer, but that was a long-term task. Right now, maybe grandfather had sensed it and brought him here, but we can see this clearly with our eyes. Rain, Zoe, and I. We can see this child who possessed almost as great potential as the 12 great prodigies of the Empire. A boy training among the ones taller than him. Someone with a weaker constitution than any children his age. His height was far shorter than other young cadets, and with low stamina and a weak physique, he fell behind most of the children his age. And he was the same age as Alf, from what I can see. And even though he was doing well with the younger ones with him, he was still far below the ones his own age. His hair was black, not like Anna's or Dad's, but still a rare dark color, while his eyes were dull golden. He was comparatively weak, but he was keeping up with everyone in long laps, body training, and meditation. He was doing his best, and even in training, from what I saw, he was doing well with his wooden sword. Just that he wasn't using a weapon fit for him. He should already know, right? Then why isn't he using the thing he is gifted with? Rain asked with a surprised look and shock as we watched this young boy swing his sword. It had gotten late, so we already sent Anna with Zoe a while ago when we were observing them train, so the two of us were alone now, watching the training. Though Zoe was now away, she saw this young child, and she described him as a needle piercing a bright ball of light. The needle was small and weak right now, and it couldn't pierce the light just yet, but it had the potential for great growth. And both of us possessed eyes that could see far more than what we needed with his whole status window. And it was pretty good if I said so. Good for a normal child, that is. Name, Crises. Age 11. Race human. Strength, 33. Dexterity, 31. Stamina, 34. Magic power, 9. Intelligence, 38. Luck, 32. Charm, 18. Skills. Rapier of Golden Ray, Thunder Awakening. The two unique skills this marvelous boy possesses. You definitely are a lucky bastard. How can these super special people just appear wherever you go? Just the first skill, a skill that almost explains what it is created for. A passive growth boosting skill, a support skill that increases learning ability, and a skill that can pierce through anything like a ray of light in its active state. But handling the active state of the skill would require tremendous strength, so it is highly possible that realization of this skill would take the young boy a long time. The second innate skill, though not as special as the first, is definitely a strong one. But that too requires a tremendous physical strength to even initiate. So, even if the boy has tremendous hidden potential, without rare and formidable resources, he wouldn't be able to use either of his skills. Well, I say just close your eyes and invest in this one. The profits would be unparalleled. And thank me for telling you all this. Not anyone could know the usage of skills just from the names. Of course. Thanks. I know I wouldn't be able to do much without you. You are the best. Just that bastard tone and words. Can't you be a little more polite? And at my words, As if giving a clear denial, my eyes twitched a little. Okay then, do as you wish. Smiling in disbelief at the words and behavior of my skill, I looked back at the young one. My skill, my intelligent deer skill, forgot to add one thing to that description. This young boy and his eyes, the eyes filled with desire, eyes full of a strong will and something I like a lot. He at least loved what he was doing at the moment, even though he was behind all the others. He didn't lose any hope that he couldn't overcome others, and he had the strong will needed to become a true knight. There was also awe as he looked at the other strong ones and the vice captain, and similar awe as he looked at the adult knights, training some distance away. He had potential, no doubt about that, but the sincerity and strong will he possessed were far more valuable assets that I was looking for. He was the perfect member I was looking for, and, as my dear skill said, I was damn lucky. And the answer to the question Rain asked a while ago was just that simple. He has never seen his own status window. And because of his high mental fortitude and that skill, no normal appraisal could see the things we can. And I know it won't do any good even if we tell him about it. The skill will just restrict the information. And more than that, he's mine, Rain. Hands off. I knew after seeing this one and knowing she could see things like me and have the description and all like my skill with some restrictions. Of course, I knew she might try it. Not that she had much interest in things like this. She was a solo after all. But who would miss a chance to acquire a potential rank 5 or even rank 6 knight? Maybe he could even become a rank 7 king ranked knight if things went right. He would definitely need great resources and external items to support his strength, skills, and physical body. But she herself had no resources, and she wasn't much interested in the things her family had, somewhat similar to me. Though unlike her, I had absurd resources, money, and the rapier fall under some of my specialties, so she had no choice but to let go of this one. A helpless smile appeared on her face as she understood my thoughts too, and I was right anyway. Well, fine. I'm not that interested and it's lunchtime already. I'm going ahead, darling. Don't waste much time. There was a bright smile on her face as she said that, and I just nodded with a smile, overlooking the darling once again. We were watching from a distance while hiding our presence, and I knew, aside from the vice captain and the squad captains, no one knew we were watching. And she walked away after this long tour we had of my new home, leaving me alone on this training grounds. Her departing figure was refreshing, but more than that, I was interested in this boy, and planning on how to make him mine was somewhat crucial. From these things, he would need to strengthen his body, increase the base strength, the opening of the aura channels, and the gaining of experience. He was still young and his talent was latent, so he will need time, but if he also joins the academy, then he will have even more chances for growth. And after he joins the academy, well, he would be the second member after Rain in my club. But for that, I had many things to plan. From how to make him realize his talent with the rapier, how he would be enlightened, and how to give him the potent strengthening herbs I possessed. A gem in rough. A knight, pure knight. And from the talent he possesses, calling him Golden Flash won't be wrong, right? Master. Just follow them. That one and everyone else he meets. Don't miss a single one, Seals. My voice was grave, and the stern tone was all it needed for her to understand these emotions. I was calm because of the dynamic heart, but if it didn't start at the right time, I knew a thick bloodlust would be covering this entire hallway. Okay, Master. There was hesitation in her eyes, but she understood this order and didn't ask anything else. I was returning from the training grounds after giving the Vice Captain Victor some instructions, and he was a nice person. He was more than damn. Stopping for a moment and leaning against the right wall painted in white and melon green, I sighed deeply. Ha! This sigh was sudden and deep, which surprised the maids secretly looking at me from a distance. They were young, but still they were adults for nature's sake. At least leave me alone for now. Smiling at them and waving my hand, I surprised them, and the ladies just ran away to the opposite side. After sensing the surroundings, leaning my head on the wall once again, I took some deep breaths. Ha! I knew we would see them soon, but to think it would be this soon. In this world, they were called Rakshasa. The demonic humans had made a contract with demons after selling their souls. These bunches were pure lunatics, people I genuinely despised. Even more than demons, probably because they destroyed nature and killed others with pure knowledge of what they were doing while wanting to spread chaos. The unsightly pests of nature and people who had long forsaken humanity. Rakshasa, though the word itself meant creatures who can change forms and trick other creatures and kill them in most cases, these humans who had sold their souls in return for power were no different from that bastard demon Marquis. This bunch, even if there could be some, and I mean a minuscule majority who were good among them, most of these bastards, including the ones Seals' clone has just encountered, were pure evil. They killed and destroyed nature, made sacrifices to summon the demons to this world, and worse things that even I didn't want to say. Just like right now. I didn't want Seals to see this side of humanity, but these bastards were just demons in human skin. I saw with her eyes what she was seeing, and it was just in the middle of the capital too. What she saw, what I didn't want my lovely Seals to see, was a horrible scene and something I would explain with the word red. In the back street of one of the normal-looking streets of the capital, a bloodbath had occurred out of nowhere. It was a normal-looking back street with some families living in normal, small houses, children playing around on the roads, their moms or dads looking at them warmly, and this clone of Seals was watching everything from a pole at the end of the street. This was just like many other streets, and Seals was watching these things, so I didn't have to worry about anything and was just plotting things that I will be doing in the future. But then, I felt the sudden dread, anger, and fear from Seals and, without saying anything, just closed my eyes to see what she was seeing. And as the view entered my eyes, just like her, I fell speechless. The moment I started seeing, there was a strong magic barrier that distorted vision, blocked sound, and decreased senses. And all that for powerless, weak humans. They were 3 people wearing black robes that covered their faces. Their eyes were pure black, filled with crazy bloodthirst and boredom. And though they were all mages, none of them used magic to massacre the weak beings. There were adults, children, and elders, and they were all happy families. Those damn bastards. I wasn't angry at how they just obliterated those innocent people, but why did they have to do that before my dear Seals, who was just starting to see the outside world? Those damn bastards. Ha! Yes, Grandpa Jean. I was on the way. Let's go. He was still using his passive concealment, but smiley face, scan, was on right now, so he couldn't escape the range of detection even though he was at the end of the hallway. I knew he was surprised to see me like that, but he didn't ask why I was standing like that. I knew he saw I was worried, but the way I spoke and my clear voice was enough to reassure him that I was all right. Sorry, Seals. They were bad people, but sadly many humans do stuff like that too. Maybe it was just the minimum that they did it, just killing everyone painlessly. Even though it was their goddamn fun. Some monsters in human skin do worse, and I know even though you don't feel the same emotions as us humans, I know you could feel mine. You have lived with me all this time, and maybe you have a different perspective of humans. All the humans you have met until now were good people, but humans, as a general species, are creatures far worse than the beasts we used to fight. Humans are the worst. I never wanted you to see this side this early, and maybe we would see worse, dear Seals, but it's the truth and you had to see this one day anyway. But, well, try to learn the difference between not just the good and bad, but also the people like me and the warm family members and those demon bastards. Ha! Seals. You don't have to say sorry, Master. It's good I saw these different kinds of beings. Don't worry, Master. I'm fine. Just what the forever cheerful Seals would say. She was amazing. Taking a deep breath and washing away this difficult feeling and face, I started walking toward the dining hall again. Humans are questionable creatures. It was lunchtime, and today, Grandma and Dad were the ones to make the special lunch. And tomorrow will be my turn for lunch and maybe dinner too. Well, this house was big and many people lived there. And I wanted to make something for everyone here, a special treat from me. And maybe it would only be for a lunch, but I would be making something for everyone. Something knights and mages would like alike. Well, I had everything planned for that one, and just telling them would be enough. I was prepared to do everything on my own, but I knew the two of them. Maybe Rain and Anna too would naturally want to help me. Well, I had a date before that one. Opening the big gate of the dining hall, as soon as I entered the place, a delightful aroma attacked my nostrils. Oh ho ho, amazing. What did you make, Grandma? That, and everyone chuckled at that weird voice. That was new. Rain complimented with a weird look on her face as she fed Anna a spoon full of cheesecake. But the delicious aroma that had bombarded my nostrils was something entirely different from the cake. And although I knew what this was, this version, the special ingredients, and with how much care they made this was amazing. Anna was chuckling at that one, and everyone was the same. Mom even almost choked while controlling her laugh, and Carla literally sprayed the water on her fourth empty plate. Ha ha ha. Ian, please say that again. Ha ha. My genuine surprise was fun for this big sister of mine. Even the maker of this wonderful food can't help but laugh at this behavior. And in all this sudden laughter, the most surprised was my dear Grandpa Jean, the only one who saw me with a difficult expression a moment ago. And he can't help his wide eyes and astonished expression. Yes, I know I'm good with these things and all, but I'm genuinely surprised. Looking at Grandmother and Dad, who sat at the far end of this table, with the kitchen open door behind them, I couldn't help my astonishment. A gratin with some special ingredients. A mushroom, maybe, and it's cheese without a doubt. And of course, the secret ingredient. We three looked at each other and, even though they were surprised by my natural deduction, they had to say this one with me. Lots of love. The three of us said at once, and others couldn't help but chuckle at our words. And not just words, they couldn't help but chuckle at our genuinely delightful behavior. 2. Even Dad and Grandma, who said that to me, couldn't help but laugh while covering their mouths at this. Shaking my head while still smiling, I walked forward and sat down on one of the chairs, or more precisely, just on the same side as Rain. Mom was on my left after leaving a chair empty, while my dear first aunt sat on the right side while leaving a chair. This dining table was quite big, so it was understandable they would sit some distance away, but this setting was quite suspicious. Not that I had any intention of thinking too deeply about this one. They had predicted I would sit here of all places, and the smirk on their faces was quite enjoyable, even for me. Mom was smirking and eating this delicious-looking food, but she suddenly remembered something and put her knife and fork down. She was as elegant while eating as she had always been, and, after wiping off her mouth with a napkin, she tapped on her wrist. That brings back memories. Mom's special artifact with enormous storage. An artifact with far greater storage capacity, as well as the special ability to store a large number of other artifacts. This had always been something that fascinated me, and though back then I couldn't see its details, now I had these eyes. 3 eyes. I used my skill as Mom took out 2 cards from this purple bracelet with a golden gem embedded in it. And before I could look at those cards and her, I saw the description window of this bracelet, and I couldn't help but gasp in surprise. Armlet of Erica, owner. Nolan Heliox Cromet von Aswa Ethan Griffin. This is an ancient artifact. Quite a rare sight to see indeed. As the name suggests, this accessory belongs to one of the old goddesses of knowledge and wealth. It is old, and the artifact is bound to this person. Just like any other ancient artifact, this one is also something special and possesses impressive abilities. It can store any number of things the owner wishes. Increase the owner's concentration, stamina, and magic power by 30%, and is undetectable and inseparable. The abilities are amazing, but even then, this ancient artifact is of the weakest level, star 0. But even then, it's amazing to see something like this outside our magnificent tower. Your mother, who definitely has a long name, is an awesome person. Well, we have read worse names, darling. This one is at least okay. And I genuinely wasn't expecting this to be an ancient artifact, not at least of one of the old goddesses. And a bound artifact on top of that. Some of the rarest things we have ever seen, right? And the feature of storing anything. Well, I guessed at least that much. But the ability to passively increase those stats by 30% is definitely amazing, right? Even I only had 3 bound artifacts or things like them. The golden fruit, Rana and Asta. And even though there were some things with me and back at the tower which could be bound with someone, those didn't work with me. In fact, aside from the 3 that I had, there was nothing much, even like this bracelet, that I can use. The special things were in treasury and, well, I knew even in them, most of the good ones won't work well with me. It was mostly because of just how very special protagonist material I was, and the origin skill also played a significant part in this. It was a problem, and the reason why there were very few things, even amongst all the ancient and divine artifacts I had, that went well with me, most probably was my origin. These all things. Ian, what are you? Oh, my bracelet. You can see what this is. I heard Mom's voice in the middle of this train of thoughts and came back to reality and blankly took the strange cards from her hands. She was looking at me with surprise, and from the look in her eyes, I could tell not everyone knew about the fact that this artifact was an ancient artifact. And she winked her eye, telling me to keep this myself, and I just nodded blankly. It definitely was rare for the outside world to have people possessing these ancient artifacts, and, as few people knew about them, was the best. It could be dangerous because there had been wars in distant history just for a mere ancient artifact like this one. This was precisely the reason why I always kept important things in the white crack and not in my storage bracelet. The world was crazy, and I had no intention of falling into any kind of conflict, and I had to thank the headmaster for that absurd gift. That stuff was invaluable in this outside world. I already nodded at Mom, and she knew I understood her and that I would understand what these cards were on my own. So she just returned to her eating. Whatever. It was what it was, and thinking too deeply about things while dinner was a no-no. But these cards were important. One was my ID as the first son of this noble lady, my mom, and a noble identification. A metallic golden card with my full name.
Axion Heliax Kramit von Eswa Eleanor Ethan Griffin.
And you called her name long. Well, it was just the Empire's custom. My name, Axion Heliox Kramit, was my main name with my parents' name. Eswa was the land bestowed on my mom after she received the title of Count. Same with Eleanor, the land Dad received and discovered in his searches of his dear son. And lastly, Ethan Griffin, a strong divine best and a place that this house guarded since the old times, even before the founding of the Empire. The archipelago of Griffins, the northern border of the Empire, and the land of waters, ships, and transportation. That place was our first home according to Mom, and I had read many things about that place. And from many things, I mean many things, pirates, ships, a long primordial history, special places and islands, secrets that no one should know, and locations of treasures that could spark wars. That land was one of the most exceptional places throughout the old, ancient, and new history. But, unfortunately, I won't be going there for at least some years. Everyone had work here. It was far away and we can't go there by the warp gate, and most importantly, the air route we would have to take was blocked by 2 ferocious, purple-ranking monsters as they had made their nest there. I had already heard many things from Mom when had some special chat during yesterday's dinner, and these creatures, though didn't hinder outside places, they definitely blocked the whole land and air routes. It was a rare occasion, and the creatures themselves were rare, and so the Empire decided to protect that area until the natural mating season was completed, and they moved from there on their own. And the estimated time period was 4 to 5 years. Well, they could negotiate with the other nearby territory, but the land around that place falls under this Empire's one of the genuine enemies. And the royal family had no intention of asking for help from them. They would rather use other methods like using very long routes, some rare ancient artifacts like gates, or use long sea routes. Well, they are fools and we can't do much about things anyway. There were capable people there, according to her, and if something happens there, we would have permission to use the royal palace's gate. Well, I don't think anything would happen there either. That place was strong, really strong. So we will be able to go there after the situation and birds clear up. And that was my name, my real name, something that I only came to know after talking with them through those letters, and all that was possible because of my dear master. Che. Thanks, Mom, for both of these. My voice was genuine, and they all understood the meaning of that sigh. And she just gave me a warm smile as a reply. The first golden card was my original ID, something I might not use in any situation. The second one was a blank purple card, something like the one Rain used back in the main city. But that was an ID of someone who worked at a noble house, in the House of Atraxia in her case. This one, however, was a blank card. I was still not quite sure, but I now knew how these ID cards worked, and this one card was something like a blank slate for the cards of at least a noble servant's rank. I was still practicing things, but I believed when I succeed, I can make this card an ID that can freely change according to how I wanted it. From name to standing in society. I can change this one to at least the rank of the one Rain had. I will be able to change the colors and name, so this would be something very amazing. And, well, I was going to use enchantments, runes, and soul nova, so this would be something foolproof. At least that was the plan, which no one aside from Mom knew of. This was a special card, different from normal ones, made from Majoros, a special metal found only on an island with very high density mana, a perfect substance for what I wanted to do. This was a personal experiment, but Mom was also interested in the results I would produce. The procedure was too mechanical and theoretical that she didn't understand the thing, but she definitely recognized the value of this thing on the world scale. She was a merchant at the end, and if I was going to invent something like this for my personal fun, she knew I would naturally also invent the countermeasure for this thing. Well, naturally I would do it. It would be a cheat item and something very fun to play with. That was it, but I still needed an ID for when I play around in the Empire and for the Academy. Rain needed it too. She naturally can't just use the IDs she had when she would join the Academy. We wanted a relatively peaceful life, and as we were special admissions and council members, having a different identity would be best. I had an idea of what I would do for that, and she had the same thoughts as me. And as we had decided yesterday, we were going on a date right after this lunch. She had been excited all this time, the second reason she just quietly left me on the training grounds. It was afternoon and she was smiling right now while looking at me. It will be fun, she said while taking a bite of her brown mushroom gratin, made with Grandma's special blend of spices, and that finely fermented cheese. I can't hold back after even seeing her enjoy this delicacy, and took a bite first before answering her flirtatious voice. And yes, this is amazing. This was the best thing I was eating made by someone else. This was best, not in all the things I had eaten until now, but in things made by someone other than me or my master. The texture, flavors, this amazing scent. This really was good. And this friend of mine was smiling warmly while seeing me like this. Your family is amazing, she complimented while keeping eating and eyes locked on me. And I answered while continuing to eat with the same delight. They are amazing. And yes,
I'm excited.
My dad, your grandma. They both were adventurers. And now we will be too. The smile on her face deepened, and she nodded happily. It will be fun. We can go anywhere we want and do most of the things we want with this universal ID. You haven't seen anything outside, right? We will have a lot of fun while going to new places in the future. She was just genuinely happy that we will have many places to go and new things to see together, and she was just purely happy. Nothing else, not even a spark of a weird thought. And this occasional innocent side of her was the cutest. Mom was happy when I talked about becoming an adventurer, and no one objected to that. In fact, everyone believed it would be the best for me to go outside and see the world on my own. And although they put some small restrictions, they were mostly negligible. And they had seen my strength already, so there was nothing for them to worry about. I was more than strong enough to pull my own weight, and having a reliable person like Rain who had seen the world more than them was just awesome. She wasn't an adventurer and more like a mercenary in the old days, but that was a long ago. And she couldn't go to different places with the same look, so she mostly changed her appearance many times. And, well, as adventurers had the privilege to go to any place they wanted, at their own risk, of course, we will be able to enter any city or any other country if we wanted. We belonged to no country, and calling us the freest humans was the most appropriate. And so, we were going on a date, and our first stop was the Adventurers Association. The strongest neutral organization which stood above other countries in terms of overall human resources and one of the strongest in the world, the strongest weapon wielder, master of one true sword, first seat of the House of the Prism, the Sword Saint, Sir Alexander, was the current master of the association. A great person who had a similar aura as me, the aura of white purity, and he also possessed an origin skill, but little was known about that one. And this person was even older than the headmaster. And the most amazing thing about him, he was a human, a person of true respect and someone I looked up to. And it wasn't just because I had heard about him and read in some books, no. I have read many things about him in many books in the tower, and after knowing all the things about him, I couldn't help but admire him even more. He was amazing, someone even my grandpa admired and looked up to. He had met him, and one day, if fate allows it, I wanted to meet him too. But no one ever knew his whereabouts. He was always there when he was needed, but aside from that, no one ever knew where he was. And, as someone who possessed a great knowledge of origin skills, I knew his reasoning. We origin skill possessors couldn't live among humans after reaching a certain level of origin stage. Che. Well, I could talk about him for as long as I wanted, but I won't be meeting him anytime soon. I just know I won't, so there was no way to even think about the divine plot armor and stuff. So, we will be going to the main branch of the association and then a simple written test and a practical test. And we both had recommendations from our guardians, who were high-ranking adventurers of their time, so we won't have to worry about the IDs at the registrations. They were responsible for us, and if the association ever needed it, they would be asking them about our identities to them. Not that we had anything to care about here. We will just go flex before the examiners and get the adventurer IDs. And something else, too. Then go around the capital to some places she wanted me to see and just have fun for the day and get back by dinner. Just a wholesome day ahead of us. And nothing much will happen. I know it won't, so I was excited too. An adventurer. Something I had only read and watched in fantasy novels and shows and in those fantastic games. An adventurer was, in true meaning, someone who wasn't bound by anything. No nationality, place, any great rule, or any particular obligation. They did what they wanted and wandered the world. But one thing was true in their line of work. Even though anyone could become an adventurer, they had to first pass the tests of knowledge and strength to get the license and the starting rank. And ranking meant there will be clear discrimination and stern safety rules when accepting quests. Well, we weren't worried about those things. We would be free to do whatever the heck we wanted there. So I was more worried about others because if my beloved friend Rain got in some difficult fight, I will be the one to clean all the mess after her. We will be adventurers forever, and that was our decision. Even after joining the academy and after graduating, I wanted to see everything in this world with her and the new people I would meet during this journey. And damn, I would be genuinely happy if there was no bad thing during this journey. But we all know that's pretty impossible. But at the very least, I knew it would be fun. And yes, there was Rain's revenge against that evil spirit too, but I convinced her, with a great difficulty, that we will do that after my birthday. Thankfully, that restless witch agreed, and that one was solved, and then this was it. This food was amazing. The excited smile on her face was also there, and before going out with her, there was just a teeny tiny thing I had to take care of first. A diamond in rough. A pure boy with the talent of rapier. The talk will definitely fun. I looked forward to this small chat, and the things Rain and I would do after that. And everything will hopefully go smoothly. Anna didn't have permission to go to the terrace, and the reason, the whole place was mine. So, how's it? Mom asked with a bright smile on her face as we looked around this big room. Mom,
I'm speechless.
this was amazing, genuinely amazing. Super amazing. The whole terrace, from this room with a big library, a small workshop, a room filled with some amazing weapons, a big bathroom with a big bathtub, an alchemy lab, and the outside of this room being an open place for training and a small garden. This place was already big, but they used spatial magic to make it even bigger. Even the library here is perfect. Not as big as the one downstairs, but the books here, they were just the thing I wanted. This was the history of the whole world, the latest one and not far older, till sorted out papers of recent events. The magic and theoretic books of current times, the trends, novels, and academics. All those things were here in one place on these bookshelves. The equipment in this place was even better than the ones downstairs. Even the complicated things that were only in Dad's lab were here. The outside training area was big enough for me to train how I liked. The weapons for training were great too, and they were just the training weapons. We had the armory here too, but it was on the underground floor, and she assured me there were some really good things. There was also an office room before all this as soon as we enter here, and when seeing that normal place, you wouldn't think there could be something this amazing behind just one of the doors of the office. A room full of diverse materials for enchanting, alchemy, magic, and magic engineering was also here. And after all that, there was a kitchen too. A small but amazing one. There were almost tears in my eyes as I looked at this room. My own room. I just hugged her as I looked at all of this place. I thought it would be a special place if they restricted Anna from coming here, so I didn't check, but now that I was seeing all this with her like this, I can't help but admire this place. Every one of us had our special rooms for work or for some other stuff like Dad's and Uncle's labs, Auntie's tea room, Carla's special underground training room, and Alf had half of his home filled with his books and papers, from what she said. And this whole place was my special place. And she made all this just for me. My awesome mom. Yes, I knew you would love this. It would be best if you explore this room by yourself, and I heard you requested Sir Victor to bring someone to meet you. Have you already found some amazing talent? She was just the cheerful mom that I remembered. And she was also as smart as ever. You already know, don't you, Mom? Well, yes. He is good and he can do amazing if taught properly. Her eyes shined with surprise and we both chuckled at the same time. She was a sharp person, and she was a merchant at heart. As well as a wonderful mom, so she knew what I would be thinking as her child, in most cases at least. And she could guess from the way I said that last thing I had my own plans. Nodding with a delightful smile on her face, she took a step back and looked at me, from head to toe. She had a warm and helpless look on her face, and I can't help my bitter smile at this. It was a long time, right? From the child to the brave boy I saw the last time, to this young, grown-up boy. I didn't get much time to play with my dear son, and now he will become an adventurer like his dad. And I will be helpless again. Warmly looking at me for a while, she sighed with a bitter smile and looked back into my eyes with a warmer smile. But now, I know you will come back from whatever place you go, with your dear friend, right? She smirked, and I shook my head with a genuinely radiant smile. She wanted to tease me, but not this time, Mom. And the clear, confident, and glad expression on my face was all she needed. Okay. I should go now. That child will be here soon and my poor work is waiting for me. Have a nice day, Ian. She was as cheerful as ever and she turned back to leave after I nodded with a smile, but then she turned back, walked towards me, and gave me a forehead kiss. The motherly warmth in her sad, happy, and lovely eyes was one of a kind, and I could only smile back at my dear mom. Have a nice day too, Mom. She nodded and walked out of the room in a radiant mood. She was happy to finally be able to show me this place, and I was happy to have this wonderful place all to myself, too. Just amazing. Even the rooms in the tower couldn't be compared to the actual emotional values of this place. This was my own room, unlike the tower, which was ours as a whole. I didn't have a special room like this one there, and that made this place even more amazing. And this was my place. I can modify it however I wanted. And I already knew I would just love to do that. Thankfully, seeing and knowing everything about this room didn't take much time with my third eye and smiley face scan, and I now knew all the things about this place. And as I guessed, there was a secret room. But we can see that one some other day. I had 1 hour before we go out, and there was a knock on the door of the entrance to this room. And naturally, there was an excited smile on my face. Apure night. Let me glance inside that mind of yours. Master Axion, I brought crises as you asked for. The vice-captain announced after the knock, and I had finished decorating the teapot, cups, and snacks on the table. Come in. I answered with a cheerful voice and picked up a teacup and a small plate with a slice of my special chocolate cake. The door opened and the image of the boy with dark hair and dull golden eyes, filled with hesitation and uncertainty, entered my eyes. Their eyes met mine and the smile on my face assured the uncertain vice captain. He was caring and he at least knew I was a reliable, good, and strong person from the things he heard from his captain. So he was all right with me talking to one of his trainees like this. With the same smile, I nodded at him and walked toward him, and after he greeted me with a bow, I handed him the plate and the teacup. He didn't understand what I was doing at first, but then, when he understood, a shocked expression covered his face. His black eyes widened, and he couldn't contain this genuine surprise. "Master Axion, how could I?" And this cracking voice coming from his side was truly something surprising. He was a rank 5 and had a special aura characteristic of solid type. He was also someone with some untold secrets, so I was really interested in him, but his real cracking voice told me he was a genuinely good person. So I just smiled and handed the refreshments to him, as I requested the boy to come in and sit down on the couch by the table with the teacup and snacks. The vice captain was surprised by the forceful behavior, but he didn't have to worry about anything with me. "I made them so I know they are good, and I hope you do like this." After hearing that I was the one to make these, he couldn't say no to this delicious-looking cake and tea with a sweet aroma. "Thank you, Master Axion." He bowed once again and took a step back. And then he moved to the left side of the hallway with many waiting sofas and chairs. Though he tried to hide this, I knew he was excited as soon as he heard I was the one to make this. Well, I knew he will definitely enjoy this, so I had nothing to worry about. I closed the door behind me and turned to the boy, who just looked down with uncertain, fear-filled eyes. But in those eyes, aside from fear and uncertainty, there was also excitement and reverence. "Crises, right? Don't be nervous like that. Have some tea and snacks. I made the cake myself. I don't know if it will be to your liking, but it should be all right." My voice was genuine, and he flinched as soon as he heard this warm voice. Well, tool or companion, he was just a kid to me first. And this young boy, he was a brave one. Others might have hesitated for a while before accepting these refreshments by me, a high noble and the young master of this house. Children like him, actually all the knights in the training grounds were, in the end, servants of this house. And that wasn't all. I was quite famous among the young children as the hero of the empire and all those things, and I knew that he, this young boy before me, looked up to me for some reason. Maybe he was also inspired by those stories and stuff, but he was the brave one to still accept the tea after saying it just once. This was different from the vice captain, and it wasn't like this boy didn't know what he was doing. His eyes said it all, so I didn't even have anything to ask. He knew it was a great thing to be summoned by me for a private talk like this. But that was it. He was clueless about everything else. And still, he was confident. He had read and heard about me, and he believed I was a good person, so there was no need to have any worry or have a guard up towards me. He took a sip of the tea, and a surprised expression covered his face. And he couldn't wait and just finished the whole cup of that milk tea. And then, with sparkling eyes, he looked at the delicious-looking chocolate cake. But he didn't directly jump on the cake. He hesitated for a moment, his hands shook for a brief moment too, but he just shook his head as if there was nothing to worry about. That behavior right there. I knew that one. And if he showed this, then it meant there was more to him than just being a normal boy that Grandpa picked up from the streets. And whoever he was, I would naturally find out one day, but one thing was clear. I liked his attitude, bravery, and sharp senses. Or more like survival instincts. They were not even close to mine for now, but there was the potential for growth. And there was also the sense of a wild beast like Carla. But unlike Carla's senses, which just focused on overwhelming power and dominance like the king lion, his were different. They focused on faster thinking, sneak attacks, and using less strength for better results. Like a tiger. He himself didn't notice this, but he had scanned the entire room in the few minutes he had been here, and that wasn't all. He had subconsciously prepared himself for many probably uncertain things. And even if he just wanted to shake every one of these feelings, he can't let go of them entirely. A special one who has seen things children his age could not handle mentally. Someone who had seen dread and death and is driven by revenge while having a strong desire for strength. And in this journey, he wants to enjoy something he would do. He was an interesting fellow, and after seeing him in person like this, I wanted him even more. Sitting on the other side of the young boy who enjoyed the cake, I watched him enjoy his sweets and just waited for him to finish. And he didn't hesitate, thinking he might not actually get any chance to eat something so delicious as this. That was cute, and I didn't mind it at all. He can eat many things like this if he follows me in the future. I smiled warmly as I looked at him, and I knew he knew I was looking at him like that, but he only met my gaze after finishing the cake. Thank you. This was impeccable. He is definitely from a fallen noble house. Maybe one outside the capital. Damn. Amazing. It was easy to deduct this much from the way he said that, and this was a pretty common thing in a story. Finding a child of some fallen family whose parents were killed, and he met a great person who recognized his talents and gave him an opportunity, and they bloomed with their support. A normal rat becomes a swan through his talents and swears his loyalty to the one who helped him. I could already see where it was going. If I was right, that is, this was just speculation and theory, and there was only one way to actually find out about this, and that was by making him tell me about himself. Unfortunately, I didn't have time for today, even if I can do that. Rain was getting ready for the date, and I had to finish things with him soon. So, I just got straight to the point after his thanks, and he visibly flinched from those words. You think something is wrong every time you wield the sword for training, right? Like you are forgetting something, but it isn't necessary, so you just let it go. You have this feeling when you are in the practice, but then you would just forget about it. Like someone just erases the memories, right? The expression on his face fell, and a sudden horror and confusion covered his face. I knew this feeling well, and just like what happened to me when my master told me about my origin skill. This one triggered something inside him. His skill would try its best to block these trains of thought and all, but not this time. A pure white light appeared on my hand, and I gently patted his head as he looked up at me with the same chaotic eyes. Don't think about it. Focus inside yourself without thinking anything and just take a deep breath. CHRY. It was already difficult to go against an innate skill, and even more so against powerful ones like these. And I knew it was futile until he was actually strong enough to handle it. Not even this resistance would do anything well anyway. So instead of thinking too much about this question, just forgetting and not thinking about why was the best way to handle this sudden storm of thoughts. And this materialized soul nova would help him quite a bit to fight against the rebelling skill effect. The problem with strong innate skills. They had some control over the body even while not being some intelligent skill like Lucy or my three eyes. As the skill was fundamentally a spell imprinted on the body or certain parts of the body, they can control the body in times of need and emergencies. And in cases like his, the skill's power would be far more than his current body could handle. And the realization of this skill would naturally incur some form of curiosity in him. And naturally, if he even tried to use his second ability, he would be blasted into pieces or just go poof or something. And even if his passive first innate skill improves his growth speed, he still wasn't ready to use it with the weak, small body he had. He will need some things that can boost his growth as well as his physical body. And I had an abundance of those things thanks to my dear grandma and the tower. I had resources, and he was the best one I had seen till now to invest in them. That would be fun, and I knew he had calmed down now. This sudden weirdness was first for a small young boy like him, but he was no normal person. He had calmed down, and after he could think properly, this whole thing greatly confused him. I could guess all the thoughts he might be having, but there was only one thing for me to do now. Looking at his uncertainty-filled eyes with a warm smile, I whispered in a low voice, "Let's go inside. Let me show you something that will open your eyes." "Thank you, Master Ian." He should with a new light in his eyes, his behavior changing completely from hesitant and uncertain to confident and free. His eyes were filled with respect, and there was a radiant smile on his face, a genuine one. The air he gave away previously had completely changed, and it was now as if he knew what he had to do. He was certain, and I knew my small demonstration was quite helpful to him. Even if the skill can prevent him from thinking about the rapier, it can't actually erase the memories. and erasing the beautiful movements of my arrow rapier swordsmanship was, well, it can try all it wants. I had done my work, and he now knew what he had to do, and I was happy with his quick mind and decision-making skills. He was young, but a smart one, and I just finished on time. Ian, let's go. Rain shouted from behind him, and we both looked back at once. He was standing just outside the door, and the vice captain had finished his tea and now had a delightful smile on his face. And just behind him, standing on the last stair, she looked at me with a radiant smile on her face. I knew the vice captain already knew about us from Sir Mel, or so he wasn't as surprised as this young boy. And as soon as she spotted this future rapier master, a radiant smile appeared on her face. But before he could even see that smile, Zerwai bowed his head before her. It is an honor to meet the Lady of Atraxia. His voice was quite loud, and the way he said it, it was more than easy to figure out he was from a noble house but had never been taught any noble costume. He had just imitated what he might have seen, and the vice captain as well as Rain caught on to this one. And as his eyes were wide with surprise while looking at him, and before he could think of anything more, I looked at him with a finger on my mouth and shook my head. There was a smile on my face, and the look in my eyes was a confident one. And he was also quick to figure things out, so he just respectfully nodded his head. Rain, naturally, caught on to this, but there was no special answer from her to this young boy's greeting. "Oh, yes. Is your work with Ian finished?" she asked with a normal face, and he looked up at her with a blushing face. "Yes," he shouted again, and this was quite surprising. The natural beauty of a witch, a racial characteristic as well as one of their weapons. Never thought it would be this effective against others. She was right when she said I was the weird one to have absolutely no effect of it on me. Well, what can I even do? She was gorgeous, no doubt about it. But I have yet to see a being as impeccable as my master. Her human form as well as her original form. They were something amazing in themselves. And I don't think I will be seeing something even close to it anytime soon. Well, that was it. And it wasn't like this strong-willed boy was attracted to my dear friend. No, this was just the effect of her natural appearance. And she won't have it when we go out, so there was nothing to worry about. Her disguise skill was a blue ranked skill from a high-level blue-ranked creature specialized in disguise and appearance changing. A rare creature and an even rare skill from Doubleganger Chameleon. And well, she looked ready right now. A normal dress, nothing much to call an accessory, and that normal level 4 artifact hooded cape. She really was ready. Well, it was nice for me. I was ready too with these normal clothes and a similar level 4 cape. And now that he had said his work with me was done, there was nothing more for her to see here. Okay then, let's go, Ian. She cheerfully shouted with a similar radiant face. And I just helplessly nodded at her pure behavior. This side of her was more like Anna and Zoe's, but it suited her well. And I definitely liked her seeing smiling like this. Secharwai looked up after her words and bowed to me one last time before nodding to the vice captain and walking downstairs. The vice captain also nodded with surprised eyes and a radiant smile on his face and followed him down. The two of them were smart, and I knew the vice captain would keep this secret, so there was no worry. So then, I looked at her genuine smile after confirming they were gone. Should I tease her a bit? Just a bit to see that angry face? Let's not. She's happy, so there's no need to do that stuff, at least not today. Not on our first date. Thinking that much, I smiled similarly to her, excited about the things ahead of us. Let's go. I cheerfully shouted, and without thinking, she came forward and grabbed my hand, and looked into my eyes. She was sudden with this one, but I didn't mind and held her hand back, looking into her now black eyes. Ready? She asked with her eyes, and I nodded confidently with that same smile. We would be going to the Adventurer Association first, and I knew that one would be done by the evening. So after that we will just go around, looking at the market and some good places. She was the guide today, and although I had seen Capital with Seals's eyes, it would be fun seeing things with her. From the things I have read, I knew it was always different when experiencing things firsthand. And if that experience is with a loved one, it would be even more glamorous than usual. I knew she would have a unique experience with me, even if she had gone to these places many times by herself. But I knew one thing. We are going to have fun. And with her happy nod, our bodies melted in the shadows, vanishing from this simple place. Find it. A dark, deep voice spoke up in a dark back alley of the capital, in the middle of the crimson blood-filled room. This was a dark, hooded figure, and there were two others with him. A humanoid built, tall but not much. Bodies covering the blood of the innocent. Weak people filled the room as they stood there, covering their faces with dark hoodies, but their emotionless, dark void eyes looked at each other. And after he asked that, and all three of them had finished looking at each other and no one said anything, the one who had asked this nodded and the other two similarly nodded after him. Area 2B, nothing. The person who spoke up first said while putting his two fingers on his forehead as the other two cleaned the mess on their bodies. And just after saying that, he also cleaned himself as the three of them started walking out of this small house. This place they left behind was complete carnage. Blood was everywhere. Everything was destroyed, bodies of powerless humans lay around, and they had died without even knowing the cause. All of this devastation and death was just sad. And it was unbearable, so, without waiting, the butterfly watching all this from the window of this small house flew out, and continued following the ones who caused this. She was naturally devastated at how they could do something like this to someone powerless who did nothing to them, and this genuinely enraged her. She wanted to do something, but this wasn't even her original body. She was powerless, at least for now she was powerless. But she knew she had faith that the one most dear to her, her master, would not let these bad people go. She just knew it, so she just followed the bad people just like she was doing until now. In an open area of the great capital city, before a giant tower, two people stood and observed a magnificent structure. A tall, hexagon-shaped tower, having almost 30 giant floors, its walls made of pearl white marble and some different metals. The outer surface was decorated with different enchantments, colorful patterns carved and made of different magical metals, and the clear, garden-like area this structure stood on. Everything about it was amazing. The entrance to this place was just an open place with no gates, and countless people came in and out of it with different moods, feelings, and faces. There were mostly humans, but the beastmen half-bred, and the purebloods of elven or dwarven or even the rare marine species could be spotted around the wide opening. The outside garden was fresh, and there were many couples chatting and even normal kids playing around in this place. Some kids and people were even practicing in open areas of the garden, and the young ones watched them with fascinated eyes. The people around this place, be it the normal people of low origin who had just come here for their usual businesses, to the powerful people and mages and servants of high-ranking people of the empire as well as the neighboring countries. Although there weren't any shops or stalls outside this tower, as everything was already present inside the tower, there sure were stalls and shops at some distance away from where this garden started. With various people, beings, moods, and powers, this place was fascinating. But that was only the outside of this special place. As the boy with black hair and clear blue eyes entered this place with the normal girl with brown hair and black eyes, entered this place through the entrance without any gates, an even more surprised expression appeared on the boy's face.
Rein.
This is amazing. His mouth was left open, and she couldn't help but chuckle at his cute behavior. It was like a little boy seeing things like this for the first time, even when he had seen more amazing stuff than just this, according to her knowledge. But he was really amazed by the inside structure of this place. From the magic elevators, the many desks with beautiful receptionists, the countless people gathered around the quest board, with countless papers with different quest spines on it. The 3 spiral stairs connected all the floors till the very last one and created the illusion as if the stairs were moving as the people went up or down using them. And the tower was huge, so the people who had money used it to pay the absurdly high fees for using the elevators. There were many counters for selling and buying bodies or materials from energy beasts on each floor. There was also a floor to just drink and eat, a bar. And just like that bar, there were also floors with a restaurant, food shop, an auction, many floors of just personal rooms and also training rooms. Some floors were dedicated to dismantling or nurturing the beasts' bodies. And then there was a testing ground just behind this floor, a place to test the newcomers. Naturally, there were test rooms for written tests, but it was generally something one can pass as long as they can get even 10 questions from the 300. The standards of passing that one were too low, and though everyone just passed it without any problem, the test was actually so difficult only a few geniuses had ever actually scored full marks on this test. They covered all the subjects there were, and from high mathematics, academics, old history, magic, and even the questions of old runes were asked in the tests. But one thing was common. The questions on the test had never changed ever since the founding High Council created it. But everyone just passed it as long as they at least knew reading and writing. Everyone mostly feared the practical exams of the adventurer test. Most people fail these tests and only the capable stronger ones are given the license and a starting rank. And the rank is only given in the rank evaluation exam if someone does reach that place, that is. Everyone who does actually reach that place is guaranteed a license, but before that, the evaluation of basic stats, magical powers, and skills, which can be skipped with a recommendation from a high-ranking adventurer, and the ID check takes place. But if you, by any nature-forsaken chance, earn the ire of the examiners, you can say goodbye to the adventurer's license. And you can't give the test for that year. One would be just dumb to actually do something like that, though. Most people are sane to know that much and pass if they reach that stage. But the main thing for the ones who reach this place is always more focused on the ranks. Getting a higher rank meant higher status among adventurers, and the ability to accept tougher quests. Well, this girl and boy duo were definitely here for the test, but, in the end, their goal wasn't to become some high-ranking adventurer. They were here to get the IDs and go out to enjoy their dates. But it didn't mean they would hold anything back. Not these two, at the very least. They would cause chaos here, breaking things while still holding back more than half of their strength and abilities. And the two, the boy and girl alike, were super excited about these tests. But the boy waited for a while and looked around, saw everything, observed the things, and used his eyes to see everything around him. He was amazed to see such powerful individuals just walking around like it was nothing. There were many rank 3 and rank 4 knights, as well as tier 4 and tier 5 mages as a party's captain. For someone like him, this really was more than just amazing. It was magical. All the people, the quests, the different kinds of beasts hunted by adventurers. The things that were sold here, from the very basic and normal grains to the rare herbs. The raw materials from beasts and the very rare stuff like skill stones and energy cores too. But those things were exclusive and only adventurers of a certain rank and above were the only ones who can have them. As for the ranks, the ranking system of adventurers starts from the most basic F rank. Then it goes like E, D, C, B, AAA, S, SS, SSS. The ranking is simple and these ranks don't actually depend on the actual strength like the knight or mage rankings. It solely depends on the quests completed and the contribution points one has as an adventurer. These contribution points are the dominant currency accepted in every Adventurer Association center. And as the Adventurer Association is a place neutral in true meaning, every country's good city has a branch of the association. And these contribution points are like the universal currency that one could use in any of these branches, unlike the specific currency of a particular place. And earning the contribution points is simple, unlike moving up in the ranks. One can earn the contribution points by exchanging money and resources, or by completing the quests. But one would have to pass the ranking up quest in order to move up the ranks or, well, it is also possible with the approval of the branch master of each country's capital branch. And before one is eligible for a ranking up test, they have to have a certain amount of contribution points, and more than that, one had to finish a certain number of specific kinds of quests. Ranking up as an adventurer is that much difficult. And that is the reason most people only start with lower ranks and mostly stay in those lower ranks forever. And the stronger ones always try to get a high score during their ranking test at the start to have a greater chance of leveling. On average, the strong people of Tier 3 or Tier 4, mage or knights of corresponding strength end up getting C or B as their starting rank at most. But That was for those who wanted to rank up as high as possible to enjoy greater benefits. Not for the two who just wanted to have fun. They had no need to rush anything or even complete any of the quests at the moment. They were here to have some fun and practice before their date, and there was another thing the boy was looking forward to. They both just smiled while looking at each other, having the same thoughts, and nodded with a confident look. Walking up to one of the free receptionists that they chose, they stood before the counter as she smiled joyously at the two of them. She was a pretty lady with long, dirt blonde hair and bright gray eyes, someone relatively more charming compared to the others. And maybe her charm was the reason most of the males here hesitated to talk to her. But she wasn't bothered by that. Less work is naturally pure bliss. She was smiling while looking at these two young ones who looked around 13 or maybe 14 years old and asked in the same cheerful manner, "What can I do for the amazing young ones today?" She seemed like a friendly lady with her genuine voice, and the eyes of the two of them confirmed that. And the boy smiled back at her on both of their behalves and spoke in a respect-filled voice. "We are here to take the adventure license test, miss. Can you please arrange that one? Oh, it would be great if you could handle our entire registration process afterward too." And naturally, this bright voice sounded wonderful. His voice was confident, and the pure smile on his face surprised her even more. With a smirk on her face, she looked back at the boy and the girl and nodded without hesitation. "Why not? If you do pass the written tests and basic ability test, I would be happy to help such brave, young ones like you." She was earnest about those words, unlike someone who would look down on mere children wanting to take the tests. But the two of them looked mature for their age, and that's why, even if they were far younger than one might think, she didn't have any other bad emotion in her. They had already seen and read everything there was to know about this beautiful receptionist, and she was just a normal, pretty commoner lady. And anyone could become an adventurer, so there was actually no need to look down on anyone here. If they pass, they would naturally join the countless people in the world that enjoyed their freedom. And the two of them were happy to find such a marvelous person here. She nodded at them and asked with the same smile, "So can I have your IDs for the registration?" And on her words, the boy shook his head, deepening the warm smile on his face. "I have this recommendation, and she too. Here's mine." He took out a piece of silver paper and put it on her desk after those words, and his partner did the same, putting a smiler piece of silver paper with a similar smile as him. And the receptionist, as soon as she saw these two silver papers, without even looking back at two of them, she first picked the papers from her desk, maintaining the same calmness and trying to hide the sudden chaos from the appearance of these papers. This was natural as they were two silver papers. Not one but two silver recommendation papers a special adventurer of only S rank or above could purchase with a large number of contribution points. And this professional receptionist didn't have to look for more than a few seconds to confirm the authenticity of the two papers. She had yet to read the information on it, but the papers were real, and just that much was enough to trigger chaos in her eyes. "Please, follow me." The papers in her hand were shaking, showing her astonishment and the small fear of the unexpected turn of events. This sent smirks to their faces as both of these two children were older and more mature mentally. Both of them, with pleased eyes, looked at the suddenly chaotic lady and followed behind her to the VIP room on the other side. Just having these recommendations was a big thing, as there were only a handful of S rank and above adventurers in this whole world who could actually have these letters. It was absurd to just so casually put the precious papers on the ground like that, but they enjoyed this prank, and she understood their joke, and still, instead of being angry at them, she now had hesitation in her eyes. Just having these papers temporarily escalated their status more than even the high-ranking adventurers here. They just played with this lady and the red blush of surprise on her face while remembering his smile a moment ago. The expression on her face right now was quite cute, and the speed she walked to the back VIP room made them almost laugh out loud. Well, this was just a play, but there was still some work for them left. The lady was a good person, so teasing her more than this was too much, even from their perspective. And as soon as they reached the room and closed the door behind them, and looked at the lady who was looking down at the ground, and the moment the door closed with the general clicking sound, she looked at the two of them, furious. The sudden anger and almost teary eyes were definitely good-looking, but do you have any idea how problematic it could have been if someone saw these two letters at the same time and at once? Do you even know their value, you small babies? How hard do you think one has to work if a giant mess like this happens to them? You young ones, how could you do this to someone you don't even know? This definitely wasn't funny. The lady almost cried after that, but before the tears could actually come out and there was absolutely no reaction from the two, she wiped the fake tears and just sighed helplessly. You already saw my status window. Damn you too. Just how amazing are you to actually have a recommendation from someone of the S grade or above? Just who are your sponsors? Just like she said, they had already seen her status window, so her skill to induce pity and guilt was naturally not going to work against them. Her skill, Damsel's Cry, was an innate skill, but it naturally wouldn't work against those who knew about it. And just from that much, she knew the two of them were powerful individuals. And her shocked eyes from just a moment ago went completely blank as her face turned pale while actually reading the two letters. Her hands were also shaking, almost vibrating like that thing. And when she finished reading them and looked up and back at the two, there was horrified chaos in those gorgeous gray eyes. Viscount Cromet, the red-eyed hunter, and Duchess Serena, the sorceress of metals. Who the hell are you two? The beautiful lady with a blank, horrified expression shouted with actual fear in her eyes, and the two of them couldn't help but sigh at this pitiful female. They already knew this would happen, and her behavior was genuine. The infamous bloodthirsty red-eyed hunter was a well-known S-ranked adventurer and was known for the gruesome amount of dead bodies he would just so casually take out from the big storage devices. And the way those beasts were killed was just unthinkable to the ones who had seen them. And then there was the all-famous SS-ranked adventurer and now one of the most anticipated members of the Elder Council of Magic. She is known throughout the continent as Sorceress of Metals, because of her unparalleled affinity with this element and ways to use her magic. She specialized in support magic and mostly used barriers, enhancement spells, as well as some powerful destructive series spells. And she was unparalleled among any other mage in the Empire when it came to barriers and trapping spells. She also had a unique series of magic as her other specialization, but few knew about it. And she was an accessory creator, some of the best out there. She used this unique series of magic in attack and defense alike, but she was ultimately known for her unparalleled support magic. And then, the Mage of Pure Destruction. The mage who actually induced fear in others' hearts with his cold, emotionless gaze. And those who had actually witnessed it would believe it is nothing less than a demon's or a supreme being's gaze. His powerful destructive magic was not as refined as hers, but everyone acknowledged him for his genius spell casting. Even after everything others had heard, those few who had witnessed him using magic in an actual fight couldn't help but accept that he was amazing. The power of his spells was visible in just the way he could cast countless spells in a short time and kill with high destructive power. But that power, that high destructive prowess, was mostly best in wide-range attacks. To kill a large group, that was his magic. And though he was good with wide-range magic, his single-target potent magic was no joke. There had been many incidents where he defeated powerful beasts alone. And these two famous people recommended the two of these children. This was shocking in itself, and after seeing these two things and thinking things through in her chaotic state, she thought things through. Which was quick, seeing the gravity of the situation. They had already shaken their heads in a no, so she wasn't going to get any answer to any of her questions. The recommendations were there just for special cases like them, and as someone who had worked as the receptionist for quite a while, she understood special cases like them. There always popped up people who shook the whole rankings, defied logic and general common sense, and possessed strength unlike anyone. And who wouldn't want to be the personal receptionist of someone like them? If they do well, it will be their profit as well. And she was just amazing to think things through like this in that much of a chaotic atmosphere. With a long breath, she calmed down and first sat down on the couch in this VIP room, and the two of them also sat down without much thinking. They also sat down, and she was massaging her forehead to clear up the remaining tension, and then she picked up the glass of cool water, all three of them, and drank all of them one by one. And then she took a deep breath. Lucifer and Uriel. Quite the peculiar names two of you have. Anyways, the recommendations are legitimate, so I will accept them. You don't have to show your IDs now, which you might actually don't even have. Anyway, the process from now is simple, and I believe the two of you know everything, right? About how the written exams work and the practice duel to decide your ranks, right? She was just looking down, not even looking at the two of them, with her forehead on the interlocked hands on the table before the couch. But she did look up just to check if they knew what she was talking about, and when she saw the two of them nod without hesitation, she just nodded back and returned to her previous state. It was ironic how the lady who spoke with the two normal-looking children so casually was acting like this. And the two of them were now acting just so casually, unlike the outside, that it surprised the lady even more. She didn't know who the two of them were, but the two knew quite a bit about this young and good-looking receptionist lady. Her name was Stella, quite a beautiful name from the boy's point of view. A normal commoner who just looked beautiful and had a special innate skill. There was nothing much special about her aside from her special appearance and wonderful managing skills that made her so unapproachable and, at the same time, the most reliable one among the new receptionists. She could finish any work so quickly that she had most of her time free, and the people who did give her any task or asked for help with great difficulty in approaching were content with her proficiency and prowess. And that was the very reason they asked this amazing lady, and not anyone else. Anyway, it will be 10 silver for the license test. The written exam should be easy for you, naturally. The time limit for it is 3 hours, and then the practical. As you have the silver recommendation letter from such a famous figure, I don't know how the higher-ups will react, but don't worry. No one would want to bother the ones with the backing of prominent marquis and duke households. But still, I don't know if you can afford it, but I suggest you get the alliance confidentiality agreement. Though it would cost an absurd 50 platinum coins for each of you, I assure you no one aside from the standing of a branch manager would be able to see your details. It's a good idea if you want to keep your details hidden. Not that I'm saying this because of my cut of the money. Definitely not. Her voice was definitely not genuine about the money thing, but she meant what she said about the confidentiality thing. And the boy agreed with what she said without any hesitation. Unlike the frozen girl who couldn't fathom the absurd amount she had just heard. It was a lot of money for her, and she couldn't think of spending such an absurd amount. Not that she had to spend anything here. The boy had already sensed her sudden hesitation, and he grabbed her hand, surprising her as well as the lady who had peeked through the gaps of her fingers. The girl looked at him, in his eyes, and asked what the hell he was doing. And he simply answered, not worried about money this time. But that didn't go well with her. She had money, just that she was one of the stingiest ones in the entire higher society. She had never spent much money, and now that she was asked to spend that exhibit amount, she couldn't help but be angry at his words. But he insisted, probably begged to just have this one, and told her that she could pay for everything the rest of the day. And he was genuine, so she had no choice but to accept the request. And this entire silent conversation that this young lady watched with peeking eyes surprised her. She was jealous of seeing the two of them this much close, that they can converse with just eye contact, and this intimate talk was actually cute at the end. She was beautiful, but she was alone, for now, and there was no need for her to go out and find a mate just yet. There was still time for her, just that the two of these children were so young, so inexperienced, new to the world, and still, they had found each other. She didn't know much about them, but from the warm look in the girl's eyes and the deeper warmth in his eyes was still a glorious scene for this receptionist. But the short-lived conversation ended, and the boy took out a card from his storage device. A black card with golden patterns and numbers on its back. This card looked beautiful, and the receptionist was surprised by not only the card but the absurd amount of money listed on its back. Please pay for all the things with this one, and also take 1 gold as a tip for your great work, miss. Just like outside, he smiled at her with happiness, and she just nodded in agreement. She was quite happy from hearing about that tip and all, but then again, she was now looking forward to the noteworthy results they achieve in their tests, and they becomes a person she would love to serve. All the things were done on her part now, and the next stops were too straightforward. A simple written test that the boy had already solved a long time ago, and something the girl could ask her eyes to answer to some extent. It was going to be the easy one, and after they tried defeating the practical taker, they would be adventurers in true meaning after a small talk with someone. And it will definitely be fun watching them do all of it. This lady, Stella, is quite good with all her work and talent in handling the paperwork and stuff like that. Just after we finished the small talk in the VIP room and came out, she got to her work, and it didn't even take 10 minutes for her to finish that complicated stuff. And this was amazing. Asking her to be our personal, fixed receptionist was the best choice. Our eyes didn't fail us this time, and her natural prowess in this stuff was praiseworthy. Rain was hesitant to use that much money even after she had core access to all the primary accounts of her household at the central bank. She can just use as much as she wanted after writing a simple check, and that would be it, but she didn't like spending more than needed. That wasn't who she was to begin with. Well, it was cute, and I liked this side of hers too. I can just be the crazy one who spends whatever amount needed when it was actually required. That is, even I wouldn't splash out money when it was unnecessary. And spending money that wasn't mine was clearly a no-no for me. Even after Mom gave me a checkbook of the house as well as her personal account, I would very well just use my own money first for anything. I already had enough to go by, and though the amount for that confidentiality thing was too much, it was worth every single coin. And even if Stella didn't tell us about it, I was naturally going to ask about that. I already knew most of the things about the Adventurer Association. This place, this whole thing, was present even before 7,000 years. Meaning, the Adventurers Association is far older than the current master of this place, as well as the headmaster combined. And I also knew many things about the 3 first guilds that came into existence some 3,000–4,000 years ago. And though I didn't know what had happened during this time, since most of the time there were millennia-long wars going around in the world, according to Master, so no one knows. Most ancient history has been destroyed by time and them, and I can only speculate things from the old stories my master had told me. Well, thinking too much about it was nothing important, as the main raising of the association actually started just 5 or so millennia ago, according to the history that I know of. And the same was true for the 3 main first adventurers' guilds of the world. Not that all 3 of them were the only strongest in the world. There were 9 most powerful guilds in the current time, and the things they offered to the adventurers to be part of them were quite something. And being part of a guild, or just an independent one who works with only the association, was all up to them. Mom's Merchant Guild also has a guild under them, and, though not one of the 9 strongest in power and human resources, that guild was one of the strongest in money support. Well, the 2 of us weren't much interested in joining any guild. If needed, I would make one myself in the far future, and that would be just for the fun. Anyway, being a part of any guild meant more resources to all the people, unlike just the ones in the high rank of association. And the concept of guild and association was quite normal, so it was easy to understand for all of us. But to be part of this, one first had to be an adventurer. And the first hurdle for it was this test paper for the written test that I was currently solving in a separate room from Rain. The High Council, Elder Council, and the Triangle Table are the 3 groups of people who stand on the top and work mostly for world peace and the maintenance of the Great Balance. And of them, the High Council of the Adventurers Association is the one who made this paper 1.5 millennia ago. And as this specific council contained not only mages and knights but also almost all of the best ones in their own fields, this paper has been one of the toughest ones to ever exist in the whole of known history. And even for me, it took almost a year's work to finally solve all 300 of them. It was difficult, had many unexpected things, and these bastards even put some wrong things in them, just for the solver to figure things out and work from there. This paper, I would genuinely give it 9. March 10th. And in this entire life of mine, there had only been one genuine question paper that I could never fully fathom or even score more than 50% in it. That shit. And its great creators. Even some new gods and all the lords would have to bow before the degree of difficulty of the questions asked in that, and one had to be at the very least Dad's strength just to even solve that stuff. My master wasn't the only one to make that. She was a part of the group that made it. Although they all had become one with Mother Nature a long time ago, their combined legacy was still there, in the center of our tower's library as well as scattered all around this entire nature. That divine stuff was cool, so cool these mortal-made questions couldn't even come close to them. And if someone this week, could solve 3 out of the 100 questions at this lowly strength, I knew the level before me right now was almost nothing compared to that stuff. And it wasn't like it needed the genius to solve either of these papers, no. It asked for how much truth one knows and how far one can think. It required pure imagination as the base, then a sharp mind that can think in scenarios, remember all the possibilities, think several times before reaching the conclusion, and after these main things. One just needed sufficient strength and knowledge to solve the questions and answer the theory. Well, this was just my point of view on this paper that few had ever solved in history, as well as the one that existed in some special, super special places like our tower. I didn't believe I could ever solve that one even after far surpassing my dad's strength or even Rain's grandma's strength. But I had already solved this one. And this wasn't even the hardest one we humans possessed. There were a few others, and I won't be seeing them till I get to the academy. But for now, this question paper was done from my side after using 30 magic papers where one had 10 more pages. So, a 300-page answer sheet for a 300-question paper. Well, though most of the answers were one-line things or even one-word stuff, some of the complicated ones asked for more than just one of these magic papers. And with the small time I had to finish this, I would never care for the handwriting. There were magic items they can use if they couldn't understand these things, so it wasn't any of my business. The supervisor was already tired of passing the pages to me, and it really shocked this normal employee that anyone could write like I did these past 3 hours. And even after knowing all the answers, I had barely made it in time. This should be enough to tell just how absurd it was that there were countless people who had solved this stuff even before the time limit. And the record holder, one of the late saints in the known history that most probably reached the realm of a lord, could just be called a monster to have finished this stuff in an hour. Was that even possible? 1 hour. Just how the hell did he even write this much stuff in the short time they had? The reason I could never actually call myself a monstrous genius was the existences like him, as well as the countless unknown ones that no one knew about. Maybe there could be someone or something in this world that can solve this measly paper in minutes or moments if they wanted, but that was just a faraway imagination. I was just a soon-to-be 12-years-old kid, and just being able to finish this stuff in 3 hours was a miracle on my end. And I didn't know if Rain could solve the whole thing or not, but I already knew she would have gotten bored after 150 and left the stuff as is. Anyway, I was finished in this normal one-room class with a single bench and a table before me. And the employee who was to supervise me, not that anyone would even need to cheat or actually cheated in this one. They were here just to give the paper and pass the required sheets when needed, and then take the answer sheets and submit them to the higher-ups, and in our cases to the branch manager himself. Branch manager of the Empire's capital. He was a powerful person, a light attribute mage and destruction series master, someone known throughout the nations as the Mage of Light Pillar, Sir Lucius. He was a good person, someone actually better than the headmaster. And from what Mom said, he was acquainted with Grandpa and Rain's grandparents, so he would directly know of all the situation just from the letters. So, I didn't have anything to worry about in that case. Rain and I will have a chance to meet with him after our practice, so it would be fun. It was still around 3:21, so we had enough time before going out and having some fun. And after paying that much, I believed that our great receptionist could arrange some things and push our names forward in the queue for the practical exam. This was the last day of the weekend, so I don't think there will be many examinees before the two of us. Putting the arranged piece of paper and the question paper, I handed it to the man who just blankly stared at me for what the hell I was doing all this time to finish things so late. Well, he can take a look if he wanted in those papers. Not that I believe he would understand even the normal answers of one single word. Well, not my problem. The one to check the answers would be the branch manager and then the council. And I knew even if his eyes were good at deciphering the words written, he would be more than capable of knowing the right magic circuits and mathematical formulas. This should hopefully be enough because though it didn't mean much to score full marks to others, those who actually do receive the mark of wisdom with their adventurer's ID license. And that thing would be quite useful in the future when I get into some unwanted, plot-driven conflict with some noble house of a different race in the academy and outside. The gift from the headmaster would be the last resort, but, as the holder of this badge, I would have the special privilege of asking for help from any branch manager of the association. And I didn't believe anyone, be it noble from empire or other nations, would ever want to go against the association. So, this was a pure win-win on my end. And now that this small paper was complete, and I knew my dear friend would be mad that I wasted 3 whole hours, we can finally finish the stuff with the ranking match and go out. Well, I would only be using physical archery and she would only be using her normal water magic, so maybe D should be a good starting rank. Something amazing in itself for the young-looking ones like us. There might be spectators and maybe Sir Lucius will be watching with surveillance devices too. Well, at our full strength right now, getting a rank would be the limit for both of us, even after using most of our strength. And naturally, exerting the full core and all strength was impossible in a normal test for either of us. Just using a part of it was more than enough for normal people like examiners. Anyway, I will just ask Sir Lucius about it after the thing, and it would be alright as long as we can go out before the evening with our IDs, so that was the plan for now. Let's go see who is the lucky one to take our test. I was excited, no doubt about it. And this was definitely going to be fun. But before that,
Rein.
As soon as I got out of the room, I saw my calmly standing Rain, standing while leaning against the wall. She was calm. On the outside, and for others, that is, I could feel the fire that was burning her whole being at this very moment. And this calmness that burned, the small smile on her face that could freeze one on the spot just like with me right now, and then the closed eyes that were just a step away from going berserk. And as soon as I came out, and she sensed my presence, her eyes met mine, and I saw the great volcano on the verge of eruption. I knew this was no good, and thankfully, I also knew how to calm that great anger. Without a word, I walked forward and stood before her, and silently grabbed her hand, startling her. And this sudden surprise was enough to calm her down, although barely. "Took your sweet time, didn't you, bastard?" she asked while holding that hand back and interlocking our fingers. Her angry eyes calmed down instantly, becoming the common ones she always had. The annoyed but cute ones. Well, I barely made it, alright? It was important for me, so please try to understand. It's not that late anyway, right? We can do plenty of things you had planned for today. And for that, we will have to first finish the practical one quickly. And to finish something, we will first have to start it, right? And to start that, we will first have to go to the place it would start, right? And to reach there, we will first have to move from this place. Don't you think so? And you think I'm some kind of dumb idiot, you bastard? Am I some lovesick, affection-drowned chick that is adorable in those gorgeous eyes of yours? Her voice was genuinely annoyed, and I could tell just from this that she was not so much as angry, but at least she was annoyed from that, right? Right? Questions I asked. But even though out of annoyance, what she had said was genuinely true. How do you know? To be this precise. You really, really are amazing. My voice was cheerful to her normal question, and as soon as the answer left my mouth, her eyes became wide and she looked at me with shock-filled eyes. "Why, you damn bastard. How dare you?" She shouted in her normal ear-piercing voice, and I did expect she might just shout this loudly in the middle of the hallway. She had just randomly said that stuff, but she didn't think I would actually agree with what she said. There were similar one-room classes in this corridor, and if not for the fact that I had put a sound barrier specifically for something like this, the others giving the test would have bled their ears and almost fainted. Well, thank nature. Sighing at her angry face that I so dearly loved, I patted her head, surprising her even more.
Okay. I'm sorry. All right.
Calm down, girl. Patting the head of this gorgeous one with now short brown hair that looked quite good on her and looking deep into her dark eyes which were perfectly normal, I watched as she finally managed to calm herself down. And I knew just standing here more than this would just drag things even more, so I started walking on the other side of the corridor. She was a weird one, and I knew this was only when she was with me. When alone, she was a very different person altogether. A calm, silent one who knows what's going on around her and all the behavior she has to take care of. No weirdness like this one, no chaos, nothing of sort. Just a simple person who keeps calm and speaks only when needed. Well, that was good and all, but with me and for me, she was just like a little girl who had a bit rough mouth and liked shouting in her charming but ear-shaking loud voice. She was loud, and she knew the consequences of that big shout, but at the same time she could only freely do that because I was here, and she wholeheartedly believed I would have taken measures against something predictable like this. I lead her to the other side, and she followed without any question while glancing back at the classes that were still going as normal. She was sorry for her behavior, and then again, she was also someone who acted impulsively back there. It was this childish, old witch's fault, and she knew what she did wrong, and she would have definitely taken full responsibility if anything had actually happened. She is a good person, a beautiful starry sky that twinkles in the endless plains of the clear night sky. She is beautiful, and we reached the door leading to the ranking test grounds. But before opening the door and entering the open area, I looked into her eyes with a warm and confident look. Don't worry, they will be all right, and you didn't mean harm anyway, right? Look on the bright side. We are almost done and things will end soon, and then we can go wherever you wanted, right? Oh, we might get the chance to speak with Sir Lucius after this test. You might have also heard from your grandparents he's a cool person, right? As well as about his all-famous chocolates. And as I knew, as soon as those wordless words reached her ears, her eyes shined with the stars in them. Really, she shouted with an excited smile, and I didn't know why she didn't even know this basic thing. Anyway, this made her excited, and after I cheerfully nodded at her, her slightly worried heart also calmed down and she was back to her 100% self. And this was good, so this should be more than enough for now. I chuckled internally and also heard chuckles from Lucy and Seals. Some of the rare situations where the two of them couldn't hold themselves back. It was funny how she was a bloodthirsty witch, far older than me, and still, this childish and special. Ha! I want to do many things with her, oh nature. Sighing internally once again, I opened the door, and we entered the open arena at the back of this magnificent hexagonal tower. In the normal arena connected to the hexagon tower at the back, a match was ongoing on the battle stage. The next opponents in line were waiting in the pavilion, watching the match as spectators for now. Some were astonished by the fight that was going on the ground, and many were bored by the boring physical fight. Most of the boring ones were mages or people with a unique profession like assassins, scouts, shield warriors, as well as many swordsmen. And all of them looked down on the one fighting in the arena for not using the traditional sword, even while wearing a king's light armor and having a tall, bulky build. The knight fighting with the examiner was a tall, bald man in purple light armor with a bulky build and a bald head with a tan skin tone. His eyes were normal gray, and he was doing his best in this fight against the rank 4 examiner even while being just a rank 3 himself. He was stronger than most people in terms of physical prowess, but he wasn't much special even with his normal red aura with no special characteristics. The examiner wasn't even using the aura even after the opponent had used it, and it would be called disrespectful in most cases, but everyone just acted normally. Most of the people here were sword wielders, and just the fact that this person on the ground was using an axe, which he was definitely proficient with, made their faces weird. It was the common point of view of the society that the sword was the strongest, and few who had reached the top with some other weapon were just special people. And in this place where people gathered to take the adventurer ranking test, most, even the examiners, were all sword wielders. That was the common point of view of the society, and most of the people, and even here, few looked all right with it, but the majority were just bored. The fight was just one-sided, and not only the spectators and the other 4 examiners, but also the one taking this one was also bored now. The man had done his best, but, in the end, he was just a little bit strong with a rough mastery of the weapon he used. And even the aura was nothing special at all. Even the dwarf, the 5th examiner who evaluated the pieces of equipment, was not much happy with the cheap and normal quality of the weapon and armor he used. This fight had gone on for a solid 5 minutes, and this much was more than enough for them to see what he was worth. So, the examiner, the one with blue hair and light gray eyes, pulled his sword backward as he distanced himself and, with a sudden sharpening of his eyes, he almost vanished from that point and reappeared before him and thrust the back of his sword in his abdomen. And this was enough to end the desperate attempt of the axe-wielding big bear. The small crowd who was cheering for this man fell silent as they saw him grab his stomach and fall to the ground. This was the end for this weapon wielder who tried his best in this test, and from the looks of all the 5 examiners' faces, one could tell they didn't like this one much. It was alright enough to get E rank, but not more than that. The person lacked the eyes to choose the weapon, the survival instincts one needs in an unpredictable situation, and a strong will that can still make him stand up after this last blow for what he fought for. He also lacked control over the weapon he used in this fight. He definitely was good with the axe, but being good with a weapon and having the talent and mastery to extract the full potential of body and weapon wasn't there in this one. And he still had a long way to go, so they just moved him out of the fighting arena as the 5 of the examiners standing on the ground beside the fighting stage looked forward to the next ones after this boring performance. There was a bit of anticipation in their eyes because of the latest news from a young attendant, and this had caught their eye. But not all 5 of them were happy with the 2 that were to come next. The one who had just come down from the stage had a look of disappointment and disgust as he heard the things from the older-looking mature female mage. He wasn't happy with the new settings, and although the mage he asked was just excited about the next one, he was just disappointed with how their superiors could do a such foolish thing. But then again, the rest of the 4 were just excitedly waiting to see something new. The situation was special, and maybe he didn't understand the full extent of the scene before them as he was new there. The 4 who had experienced were eagerly waiting for the next ones to come and greet them here. And thankfully, none of them had to wait for much longer as the door on the other side opened and the 2 figures we were all familiar with walked in with confident looks and excited smiles on their faces. The blue-haired swordsman wasn't much happy, so he just sat on his seat, waiting for the greetings to be over. But the 4 of them, they couldn't overlook the genuine mysterious air the 2 of them carried with them. And just from this much, they knew these 2 won't be disappointing them. The boy that this new instructor didn't like much was even more special in the eyes of the rest of the examiners. The girl looked strong just like him, despite being a mage. They knew these 2 were a mage and archer dup, which didn't actually come under the standard duo parties among the adventurers. Both of them were long-range dealers in this regard, so there was no counter for short range with them. And this fact made this even more exciting. There were 5 people as the examiners, and one of the 4 would be on the stage for actual battles with the opponents. One was the blue-haired rank 4 swordsman, the gray-haired, tier 4 water mage lady, another knight in full armor and a great sword as well as a helmet covering his face who was a rank 4 knight just like the other one. A magic swordsman, someone quite rare, with red hair and a long sword on his waist. But he was a tier 3 mage and a rank 4 swordsman, so his overall strength was similar to the others or just slightly more. He was a mature man, just like the mage woman, and lastly there was a short but muscular person with them, who was the most experienced and old among the people here. He was a dwarf, a race of high intelligence and someone who was a senior executive who observed the potential recruits for the association. They were here, and now that they had heard the confidential examinees who would be observed by the branch master this time around, which was just the common sense of course, they can't help their excitement. And although the information given to them just stated the 2 were a water mage and an archer, the confidentiality meant as little information as possible. They can only see what these 2 had to offer in the fight, and all of them were excited to see their powers despite their young look. Looks were always deceiving in this world, so instead of just gauging the strength with mere eyes, seeing what they can do was the best. The young 2 of them were standing before them right now, and all 4 of them could see, feel, and speculate things about them. The girl with short brown hair and black eyes looked just normal, but there was something in those normal eyes that no one sitting on the pavilion had. The dwarfs could even tell that there was something in the boy's eyes that not even the 4 of them with him had at this moment. And this excited him more than them. What's more, he was a dwarf, someone who worked with fire, metal, earth, and knowledge every day. His whole being's core was those things, and he could feel those things from this person before him, too. The fire, the charisma, the wisdom that few had, the strength that was honed with brutal experience. He could tell just from his body structure and muscles that this boy, he was stronger than even what met his experienced eyes. And the girl was similarly special. Even though she was a mage and was going to use magic here, he could tell she was strong even while looking at her normal-looking cloth-covered arms. Both of them were also using some good gear and, aside from the normal caves, he knew the other clothes were artifacts in the form of normal clothing. Especially the boys. His artifacts, from the clothes, that black clock, and even the boots were the most special among these things. They were amazing, and the boy had already sensed his curiosity, so his eyes met this old dwarf, and just a single look was enough for him to know he should stay silent. So he gave him a knowing look, and they both nodded at each other, knowing things all too well. And then, after this initial evaluation of the two, which was definitely more than just positive, the dwarf nodded at them and looked at the girl first. Why don't you start first? The mage lady here is also a water mage of tier 4, so it would be okay, right? There was a warm smile on his face as he said that, which was totally the opposite of an average dwarf's normal behavior. Dwarves in this world were beings of high intelligence. They were proud creatures who considered their creations, the dwarven creations, as the best thing there could be. They mostly looked down upon the other low-intelligence creatures, and humans were naturally one of them. Though they did admire the strength and proficiency of their fields, the warm look that this dwarf gave her was genuinely not something any average dwarves would have. And the look he was giving the boy was even deeper than hers, so it became even more awkward for the boy as well as the impatient girl. She just wanted to finish all this as soon as she could and go to the branch manager and taste the delicious chocolates he was famous for. Aside from his strength, naturally. She was excited, so she didn't even hesitate and looked at the lady with long, bluish-gray hair and dark brown eyes. The lady was alluring as well as voluptuous. She looked older even while being a mage, but she definitely was attractive. And many males in this arena were just staring at her for as long as the others can remember. But her beauty was nothing for the 3 other male examiners. Only 3, though. The swordsman who was dissatisfied was definitely attracted to this person, and the other 3, even the 2 young ones as well as some experienced ones on the pavilion, knew this. But the girl had no interest in any of this. So, just after greeting her, she walked up to the stage and went to her spot on the other side. Her impatience surprised others as she was just a young girl who looked just normal in their eyes. And even though the announcement was made with her name Uriel that she was a water mage, none of them were much excited. They knew this would be a battle between mages, so the weapon wielders were naturally not interested in this one, and the mages were somewhat the same. The girl looked young, and there was no way they would be surprised if the opponent wasn't the mage of the 12 geniuses of the era or someone of a famous and similar higher rank. This girl was nothing special looking, and what's more, they couldn't even sense her mana. And though they couldn't see her status window, they just believed it was because of her high mental fortitude and their low ranking skills. They didn't think much about this fight and didn't even look forward to the possible unexpected things. Most of the mages were tier 3 anyway. What can a mere girl do against that strong tier 4 woman? The majority had these thoughts, but naturally, everything had exceptions. Some, though very few, were definitely some who were looking forward to this fight in the hope of seeing something different. Those were just the spectators, but the opposite situation was happening with the examiners. The 3 males, including the dwarf, the armored knight, and the magic swordsman, were looking forward to this fight, but the one-sword swordsman was still sitting on the back, staring at the normal-looking boy. He did understand there was something different about the 2 of them and that the girl would perform better than he anticipated, but this boy, no. What would a young boy who used a bow could do against a swordsman? How can a long-range weapon defeat the all-powerful sword, which was a close-range weapon? Why would they even send some archer to the ranking ground in the first place, as the long-range weapon wielders always finish their rankings in the second test of stats and just some normal target practice? This boy, What can he even do here? Against the knights and mages like them. He would just cry and get hurt unnecessarily if anything. And as young as he was, he didn't believe this boy could even come close to the natural reaction speed and movements of a rank 4 knight like him. And naturally, his thoughts were natural and right from the point of view of a normal person or a normal adventurer. But he wasn't some normal person or adventurer in this place, and as he was new, they knew he wouldn't understand this thing just yet. He was going to fight this young boy, this archer, anyway, so they knew he would understand things himself. Instead of telling him, they naturally would choose to just let him experience the most unexpected things one had to witness as an examiner of the Adventurers Association. And he would start to know these things, just after seeing the fight that will unfold now. A fight between an experienced water mage as well as this young-looking water mage of some low rank. Everyone was excited, but the boy, the one who came with her, was the only one who knew. This fight wouldn't even last for 3 minutes. The examiner asked her if she was ready with a simple nod, and she nodded back without hesitation. She was confident, and more than that, she was ready to just finish this match as soon as possible with the least energy and moves she could use. There was a fire in her eyes, almost a dot of crimson-red light in those black eyes. The mage lady nodded last time and looked at the other side of the pavilion, where the control room of the arena was. And they got her signal as a horn rang in the arena and 3 lights, glowing in red, appeared on both sides of the arena. They both could see them at the front, and they were the signals for the match's start. The girl looked on the other side at the back for a moment, at the boy who had come with her, and even though it was a brief moment, they both talked about everything they wanted through their eyes. And she was now even more confident, as a smile had appeared on her face, which naturally surprised everyone who could see her. The girl was going to start an offensive naturally, and the mage lady also knew this, so she was ready with an attack of her own. She didn't yet know the powers of this girl, but from the looks of things, she could understand that the girl was strong, so underestimating her would be the last thing she would do. The red lights started to go out one by one, and this meant the start of this fight that even the branch manager was watching from surveillance. Things were spiced up just from this much so. The heart of the mage lady was beating even after now. This match would be some of the few amazing ones she had ever had in this place, and she wholeheartedly believed it. So, she was expecting many things from this girl, and hoped she wouldn't disappoint her. And the girl was just normal. Calm, normal breathing, clear eyes, no fluctuation of mana around her, and still, countless places in the air before the mage lady had started acting weird. The second red light vanished, and now, the mage lady knew something bigger than her expectation would be hitting her. Something she didn't expect even after having this much excitement. A strength she wasn't looking forward to see, the prowess she hadn't expected, and something she couldn't block with just a simple attack spell. The third light went out in the split second the mage lady thought things through, and now it was time. The calmness in the girl's eyes was the same, and the entire area around the examiner was now her attack zone. Now, the ones on the ground knew this too. They were seeing a genius of the 12th level. And the thing that will happen now could only be blocked, and not even dodged by even a tier 4 mage like her. A sudden shock and fear appeared in the eyes of the experienced mage lady, as she channeled a large amount of mana and cast 2, tier 3, defensive shields. And that was good quick thinking, because as soon as all 3 of the lights turned green, rain started. Rain of the water attribute spells, original spells of tier 1, with the genuine power of tier 2 spells. Countless magic circles had appeared in the surrounding air of the examiner and started firing unstoppable water lances, sharp water currents, crescent blades of high-pressure water, and many spells like that. Though the spells were all weak on their own, no doubt about that, but being hit by these countless spells at this absurd rate was maddening. The magic circles that looked attractive were there for just the moment when the spell was shot at the lady, and then it vanished, replaced by a new one, different from the others. And the spells were so strong after being shot at once that the tier 3 barriers were nothing in front of them. The barriers she created just vanished, shattered into pieces, but the spells that attacked her from all directions, not even giving her a chance to cast another spell. This was absurd, and more than enough to make everyone on the pavilion and the downside of the arena speechless. They couldn't believe what was happening at the moment and at the degree. The spells were shot at the lady and their combined strength was nothing less than a Tier 4 spell. Just doing this required unparalleled knowledge and mind, but to maintain it for this long was a miracle on its own. Not that no one couldn't do the same. There were young mages in the 12 prodigies that can do things like this, but right now the girl wasn't one of them. And still, this unknown girl was overpowering the mage lady at this moment. Countless spells shot at the powerful barrier, countless barriers broken by the sudden barrage of spells. The lady barely holding her place and maintaining the continuous summon of the barrier spells, and the now somewhat tired girl with the dimming crimson light in her eyes. The spells were countless. The strength was undeniable. The opponent was genuinely weak, and she was done with what she wanted to show she was capable of. So, to end things there, a bigger magic circle started appearing on top of the barriers the lady was creating. A bigger circle, and one would naturally know the spell was Tier 2, just from the structure, and the strength would be the last thing from this girl. Her impeccable act made them believe this was all she could do, and that last one would be her last attack of the absurd barrage, and even then, no one could believe what had happened in the past few minutes. A countless barrage of spells that made the overall output even grander than the normal Tier 3 spells could ever reach. It was possible when one knew how the magic spells worked, how to make new magic spells, as well as how to constantly channel mana to continue these spells. The technique wasn't hers, but she was grateful to the one who taught her this. Though not so difficult for her. This was definitely something even more difficult than the double, triple, or quadra casting techniques. And she could only do this because of her special body, the deep knowledge of the spells, and the old magic skill she had. But still, she was genuinely mentally tired by this thing. Even with her high affinity with water attribute mana and similarly higher concentration that was the key component of this spellcasting method, she could only maintain this for around 10 minutes at her current level. And though the 10-minute thing was absurd in itself, he had told her not to overwork at all. So, these 2 minuses were more than enough, and that final spell of almost Tier 3 power was more than enough for them to get a decent score. She had started her attack at a legal time just after the signal. The instructor never even got the chance to attack, so she was naturally strong. The fight had shocked everyone beyond belief, and now, this was good enough. Time slowly passed for the spectators, and even slower for the one blocking these countless spells. This was supposed to be a rank inspection, not a one-sided total domination. This girl. The lady never wanted to underestimate her, but she didn't even give her any chance to prepare any attack spells. One after another, the aftershock of the spell hitting the barrier was intense. And even though she had just defended herself from these mere Tier 1 spells, the spells definitely hurt her a bunch. Her mana flow and concentration could barely keep up with the monstrous efficiency of this girl. And even though she would be fine after being hit by the small Tier 1 spells, it was not for much longer. They were original spells and tough to dismantle. She could tell just from the looks and structure of those spells. The girl was no normal person. And this technique she used to cast the spells. Mysterious and something that would definitely take a huge toll on one's body as well as mind. And from the looks on the girl's face, this lady could tell. This magic circle that was appearing above her would be the last thing from her. Then she would be in no shape to attack, and similarly, the lady herself would be too tired to even stand in the place like she was now. The girl smiled, and the lady knew this was the time. The magic circle manifested in the air, and she cast another 2 layers of Tier 3 spells on the existing 6 Tier 2 ones. And she could just hope that these barriers could at least stop the attack coming at her. The magic circle manifested and started rotating in the air as every other small one vanished. And then, a whirlpool fell from the sky and collided with the 8 barriers the lady had created. The pointed end of the whirlpool, like a drill before wood, easily broke the first barriers, and the savage recoil from the block was definitely more than enough that her internal organs took a bad hit. But still, she managed to stand strong and endure the pressure from this small but high-pressure whirlpool. And thankfully, the spell didn't last more than a few moments. The last two barriers had managed to block the spells, and she was all right even after that horrible spell. The girl was covered with sweat and there was blood flowing out of her nose, with her complexion being pale white. Nice acting, the boy would say, but still, the sudden sharp headache she felt was real. The ground of the stage was damaged quite a lot on that one side, and after the spell, both the girl and the lady had fallen to the ground, tired and powerless. Their battle was one-sided to some, but it was just a close call in the eyes of other examiners. If the girl could maintain that technique for just another minute or so, then she could have easily defeated the Tier 4 mage lady. And that was their deduction, not the truth. The lady was just a normal and powerful Tier 4 water mage, nothing special. So, the boy knew that someone like the girl, who could actually see through his near-perfect defense, was more than capable of defeating even a normal Tier 6 mage at the level she was right now. Anyway, the fight was jaw-doping, and the reactions from the spectators as well as the 5 instructors were quite the sight for the boy, who was happily smiling at the girl on the stage. In the backyard of the Hexagon Tower of the Adventurers Association, a strange silence had overtaken the whole arena. A silence so still that even a drop of a needle would echo like a shout on a mountaintop. The people on the pavilion had their jaws dropped, eyes wide open, and faces pale as the pure white clouds in the clear blue sky. Their eyes were locked at the arena, on the young mage who they thought would be weak against the powerful mage lady of Tier 4. The weak girl should have done some desperate struggle for a rank at least higher than F. Their simple thoughts were crushed, just like the barriers from the mage lady, and the shattered faces of boredom were something really peculiar. The faces they made because of the girl for being foolish were now something similar to a normal human seeing a ghost out of nowhere. A scary one that would scar the shit out of others from just its mere presence. The mages knew all those spells were low tier, but the sheer number of those spells was enough to make even the other examiners speechless about what were these mere spectators. The last few minutes were unreal. They couldn't even fathom just how someone could use spells consecutively like that. The level of the spell was irrelevant if you don't even get the chance to cast attack magic on top of the defensive magic against that seemingly countless rainfall of spells. This was unbelievable, and from how most mages can only go as high as triple casting in their whole life, this kind of complex casting method that even high-ranking mages would find difficult was performed by this young girl. They couldn't believe it. From the moment the fight started to the end, when the both of them were on the ground, gasping for air and stabilizing the soul that had left their bodies for a while now. They were taking a breather on the ground, and something similar was happening with the other examiners, who hadn't taken their eyes away from this fight. They had forgotten to even breathe for those few minutes this fight went on, and now that the fight ended with a somewhat drow, they could finally breathe. They could breathe the fresh air of this still air, this still arena, this soundless ranking ground. A match that can make this forever noisy place speechless. That was a greater feat than just matching the examiner. Anyone who could do this much would easily get D rank or more, and that was only with the ranking practical marks. With the written test, who knew this girl might just get C rank, something few had ever achieved at that age. Her mastery of spells and control of mana and attribute was outstanding, and it took a whole 2 minutes after the fight was over for the people to come to reality and start cheering for this old witch who looked like a normal young girl. The spectators were overjoyed, and the surprise in their voices was enough to tell just how amazed they were by her performance. This match, this marvelous performance. It was engraved deep in their minds. Not that any of them would remember it after a while. The examiners were different. They will be able to remember this one however long they wanted, and that was enough. The 3 of the examiners who were standing and looking at the situation were just flabbergasted by this girl's magic casting technique. Though it must have put an unreal burden on her. She pushed the mage lady, a Tier 4 mage lady, to her limits, and this was a great achievement on its own. She had done excellent work, and they were glad they got to see such amazing magic. The 3 of the standing ones were at the very least. The 4th one, the new one among the examiners, was not just surprised or flabbergasted. He was shocked beyond belief like the spectators, And this shock was not at the fact that how can she use that kind of casting technique with that small body, but this shock was because of the physical body that could actually handle the burden of that absurd magic and still just bleed a little. As the examiners, they knew just how difficult it is to do something with a weaker body with low stats. And being able to handle that extreme burden of casting technique definitely required high stats first. And he also could tell, just like the other examiners, this girl had physical stats comparable to a basic knight. And that was amazing. Just thinking about how a young-looking girl can have that high base stats as well as high magic affinity understanding, and that precise control was unreal from a normal point of view. This shocked him more than he had ever expected, and that was just the girl. When he hesitantly looked at the boy that was with this girl, who was naturally smiling warmly at her, his clear image of the kid changed dramatically. It wasn't just because the boy was with the girl and the thought that if the girl could perform something so unexpected like this the boy might too, but also because of how the girl was smiling warmly at him. He knew that she herself understood she was strong and fundamentally, one wouldn't be with someone weaker than themselves in some certain aspects, so the chances of him being able to show something of simile scale was higher than before. But then again, what could a mere archer even do? Have higher reflexes than the superior swordsman. Have higher destructive power against someone who had aura. What can a mere young boy do against an experienced man like him? He wasn't even a mage for being able to use magic like this rain of spells. This rank 4 swordsman knew even if the boy was something more than he had expected, he will be more than enough to defeat him. He was a physical attack specialist, and though defending against the countless spells would naturally be difficult for him, it was different against some normal arrows that couldn't even pierce through his high physical defense skill. But, after seeing the mage lady in that situation, this strong young man was somewhat angry. The normal, old-school, one-sided crush. Yes. He was somewhat angry about how can the girl could do something like that to her, nor maybe just that he couldn't accept the fact that the girl had almost defeated an examiner. Their match was over, and there will be a test for this boy too. And the swordsman knew he will be the one going against him. Now he wanted to defeat the boy even more than before. Not that the outcome will change from the one right now. Maybe it would be even more dramatic than this one, but not less. The boy had to go somewhere, and he didn't know just how long it would take for them with the branch manager. So, the young boy was contemplating whether to just finish the fight in an instant or take a few minutes as she did. He could do either of those things. He wasn't restricted here like at his home. There was nothing to worry about against a strong opponent that actually had no connection to him. He would just be showing a part of his strength that only these examiners would remember and no one in the spectators and even the control room. Actually, things had already started in the control room from how they didn't give the match finishing signal even after a few minutes had passed after the match. The executives would already have reached that place, just like how they were hiding in the corners of the pavilion, ready to do their work. The match was amazing, and the most surprised one who knew everything that had happened in this match was even more astonished than the others. He knew others hadn't seen or known what had actually happened here, but he knew everything from how that magic technique worked to how absurd it actually was. Having a body above the normal humans, one that circulates energy differently and more smoothly, having all the energy channels in the body open like the witches and wizards, having a mind that can process countless spell information simultaneously, and above all else, the experience of actual battles. Without all these things, this kind of spellcasting was close to impossible for any young girl, even with high stats. The technique was made for those who can actually circulate mana in their entire body, through every part of their body, and still be fine. Usually, humans couldn't do this without some special innate skill or blessing, but it was natural for witches and wizards. They had natural energy meridians throughout their body that can improve at a faster rate than normal humans with time and training. Talent was also an essential part of the process, as well as a very high affinity with the elemental spells one uses in this casting method. And then, after all this hassle, if you can handle the burden of becoming an engine that just processes and circulates the spells in a pre-decided manner, you can pump out that kind of spell rain. Definitely difficult, but powerful enough to overpower a Tier 4 mage with mere Tier 1 spells. All of them were original spells created by the girl himself, which definitely reduced the burden a bit, but it was still a lot. And she still managed to make the examiner fall to her knees. This was definitely an amazing battle, and the dwarf was overjoyed he was here to witness such an amazing match. And one more thing was on his mind that constantly bit at his old dwarven scenes. If just this girl was this amazing, just how amazing of an archer was this boy? He couldn't contain the smirk on his face as he looked at the boy, and the boy had even given him a small smile, confirming what he was thinking would definitely be true. And this excited him far more than it had ever been in the 800 years of his life.